The main character Kang Yama accidentally finds himself transported into a game called Pathu Win, which features a typical monster hunting system. Overall, it's just an ordinary game. What draws him to play this game is the captivating beauty of the female characters. In the end, he ends up spending a significant amount of money on it, even after playing through many rounds. Yama can't even be transported into a decent character, nor is he an NPC. He's just a background character that no one knows about. Kang Yama in this game is a sword demon. The setting of this miraculous blessing takes place in Korea with a few minor differences. Overall, it's easy to adapt. As of now, Yama has been in this world for a year. Sometimes he even wonders whether this is real or just a game in this world. Yama has been living a peaceful life that he couldn't enjoy in his previous life, but that brief time quickly came to an end. When that fateful day arrived, it was the day the Joaquin Academy sent an acceptance letter to Joma's family. Everyone was proud and happy about it. Only Joma felt indifferent. From that moment on, his modest dream of a peaceful life seemed to vanish into thin air. Yama took the acceptance letter back to his room. The enrollment date on it was for tomorrow, and with the family in such a joyful mood, he had no way to refuse. Yama was truly exhausted by this situation. He wanted to give up many times, but he couldn't. It's all because of Kang Yama, his previous self in this world. Before being transported here, he had revealed his divine power and was accepted directly into the academy. Speaking of divine power, it's a special ability that humans can use similar to skills in a game. However, not everyone possesses divine power as it only appears through inheritance. With divine power, society in this world has been divided into 3 classes: the elite commoners and the underclass. The Joaquin Academy that Yama is about to attend is an organization established to maintain the power of the elite class that has been set up beforehand. Although it was founded under the pretense of training heroes, in reality, it has become a school exclusively for noble families. Recently, a special enrollment system has emerged for families that are not heroes. It's called Special Enrollment, and Yama is one of the special students accepted into it. The reason for needing to train heroes is not hard to guess. It's because of the Demon King and those hideous monsters. One could consider Drakeen as a kind of hero training school, preparing for war like a young man having to re-enlist. To protect peace, Roma, feeling dejected, called upon his divine power. Immediately, a status window appeared. Roma glanced over the divine powers that his original character had awakened. They were all mediocre divine powers with a 30-second activation time and a 12-hour cooldown. Yama looked at them feeling annoyed and frustrated. Suddenly, he realized something important. On the system window was the divine power granted to him upon entering this body. That divine power is called Bamboo Blessing Sword God. It will break if Yama slashes. The activation time is infinite, and there's no cooldown. Yama had never seen this type of divine power in the game. It sounds beautiful, but the actual effect is so mundane that it makes him laugh. But what stands out the most is the activation condition. It only activates with a long sword, under 30 centimeters, and a width of under 5 centimeters. That's clearly the size of a sashimi knife, so isn't it implying that he should go cut sashimi here? Anyway, life doesn't always go as one wishes. Yama still has to gather his things and prepare for tomorrow. He also needs a weapon for studying and training. Remembering back when he played the game, the weapons his character used were very expensive. Even the lowest E-grade type cost around 10,000 won, while a medium C-grade would be in the hundreds of millions. Having an A or S-grade item is like possessing a real treasure. Just the tuition at the academy is a huge amount, like a dinosaur. Yama definitely doesn't want to spend money on something he's being forced to do. But the admission letter clearly stated the requirements, so if I don't bring anything, it'll leave a bad impression. On the first day, there was no other choice. Yama let out a sigh and decided to go. He headed to Daiso to buy supplies. At that moment, he suddenly remembered his first master, who insisted on using a Japanese sashimi knife that cost over 100 million won for combat. He had a saying that Yama would never forget: a true master never blames their equipment. Before long, the next day arrived. Yoma was standing in line to check in as a new student, but there was a bit of an issue with the dorm supervisor. The problem was that the weapon Yama brought was just a bunch of sashimi knives he had bought at Daiso, which were on a 30% discount. The supervisor observed sternly, Every year, the elite students often pulled pranks, so he felt the need to establish discipline right from the start. Then the supervisor slammed his hand on the table and shouted at Yoma, "Do you really think using a kitchen knife like this as a weapon for the placement test is acceptable?" Yoma remained calm and insisted that this was indeed his weapon. Seeing that he seemed unyielding, the supervisor became a bit flustered and continued to yell. But Yoma interrupted him, saying that he was a special student who had been recruited here and couldn't even afford the tuition, let alone buy a fancy weapon. "So what do you expect me to do with the little I have?" The supervisor looked at Yama's name tag and suddenly fell silent, confused. He never expected this rotten organization to put such a sincere and respectful child in this situation. Seeing the supervisor quiet, Yama added another philosophical remark. "Blaming your equipment is just the way of amateurs." The supervisor was left speechless after hearing that. This was definitely not something a boy of his age should say. It felt like Yama had reached a peak in some field. Looking at his face full of determination and strength, the supervisor felt the weight of the words he spoke. They were so powerful and profound that they almost brought him to tears. Finally, the sashimi knife was approved as a weapon. The previous incident had caught the attention of other students who were all buzzing, and most importantly, looking down on a regular special student like Yoma. The supervisor, feeling like he had been hit by a rocket, spoke with fiery determination to the students. "Be quiet and move quickly and efficiently after the evaluation is over. Whether you become angels or demons depends on your attitude." Hearing this, Yoma suddenly felt angry, as if he had just been psychologically tortured by that statement. A while later, Yoma entered the academy and sat down in the yard to rest. Although he had anticipated this, the direct experience still made him feel uneasy. The equipment test and the admission ceremony went smoothly. All that was left was the placement test. Yama pondered for a moment. After all, he was here now. This grand and beautiful school would be where Yama would study for the next 3 years at the Dragon Hero Academy. Looking with his naked eyes, it was definitely different from what he had seen in graphics. The entire campus was as large as a small town, very impressive. The feeling of a kid who had to drop out of high school due to family circumstances back on Earth, now studying in a school for the elite, was strange and hard to describe. At that moment, the school's loudspeaker announced. It requested all students to gather in the training hall by 1 p.m. It seemed that the important placement test was about to take place. Yoma took out his special weapon from his bag. A test is a test, so he needed to get familiar with it. Reflecting on it after entering this game for a whole year, there was no reason for Yoma to use this knife. His master from his past life once said that one day he would have to put down the knife, but even when going to sleep, he must hold on to it tightly. Yama examined the knife and then lightly tapped it to check. This beautiful grand school will be where Yama will study for the next 3 years at the Dragon Hero Academy. Just looking at it with my own eyes is incredible. It's definitely different from what I've seen in the graphics. This entire school could be as big as a small town. It's really impressive, especially for someone who had to drop out of high school. Due to family circumstances back on Earth, now I get to study at a school for the elite. That feeling is so strange and hard to describe. Just then, the school's loudspeaker announced, "Attention, all students please gather in the training hall before 1 p.m. It seems like it's time for the important placement test." Yoma took out his special weapon from his bag. A test is a test, so he needs to get familiar with it. Looking back after entering this game for a year, there's no reason for Guillaume to use this knife. His master from his previous life once said that one day he would have to put down the knife, but even when sleeping, he should hold on to it tightly. Yama observed the knife and then lightly tapped it to check. "It looks a lot better than I thought. Now I guess I should slice a few pieces to test the sharpness." Just as Yama pulls the knife out of its sheath, a surge of blue electricity envelops it. The status window suddenly appears, notifying that the blessing of the sword god has been activated. The current physical level and weapon level are too low. Use the synchronization creation armor for the user. Yama's body suddenly stiffens. Goma has just drawn the knife and hasn't had a chance to do anything yet. It feels like the current radiating from the knife is paralyzing him. The system displays the synchronization process. It has now been completed. "May the blessings of the gods be with you." Instantly, a piercing pain hits Yoma. A powerful current emanates from the knife, causing him to scream in unbearable pain. "If this keeps up, there's no doubt I'll meet my ancestors." A blinding golden light radiates. Yoma feels like his body has shattered and then is reborn into a new form. The overwhelming power from before leaves him frozen, causing him to drop the knife to the ground. At that moment, everything immediately returns to normal, leaving Yoma bewildered. However, both his head and body ache as if someone had torn him into pieces. Yama realizes this is part of activating the holy energy, but he wonders if this shattered world has anything to do with the blessing of the sword god. The reaction just now was incredibly painful. The holy energy is ineffective and only helps alleviate the pain after use. If every activation feels like this sooner or later, this body will be discarded. Perhaps right now, Yoma can't use this sashimi knife at all. The school's announcement system blares again. All students, please gather at the training hall immediately. With no other choice, he has to pick it up. After all, he can't just leave a knife like that lying around. Who knows, that pain might just be from the first activation, but Shu tells him the subsequent activations will be just as bad, just touching it lightly. Yoma gets jolted so hard he curses. He heads to the training hall where all the new students are gathering. The atmosphere is lively and buzzing, especially the head of this school. The 7 elite heroes Kling Gi are also present. He is known as the descendant of Belung, the direct disciple of the original hero Belo Draqueen. The power radiating from his expression alone is enough to scare people away. At this moment, the principal of the academy, the wise Media, appears alongside Kling Gi. Her attire makes her look helpless and unbearable. Perhaps being in her 70s is just a number for Media. After all, every woman wants to maintain her beauty until death. Kling Gi looks on, knowing there's nothing he can do. At 70, she still hasn't matured. Media chuckles sarcastically. This old man, Kling Gi, is no different from 55 years ago, yet he brought her to places like this. In general, he has made an effort. Media guesses that the noble lady Kling Gi introduced must be very beautiful. Kling Gi remains silent, pondering something. Everything seems to be about to begin. Yama has now arrived at the hall. However, after looking around for a while, he realizes he is the only one with black hair here. He feels like the black sheep among a flock of white sheep. On top of that, he is a special student among a crowd of young masters and ladies from noble families. There's black hair here. It feels like a black sheep among a flock of white ones. On top of that, being a special student among a bunch of rich kids from noble families adds to that feeling. The scrutinizing, disdainful glances from them this morning made me feel like I was falling into an abyss right at that moment. An important event in the game was happening simultaneously. The zombies were peeking around, and after a while they spotted the most important character in the game, the female lead, Annabelle Vani Bellung, the noble daughter of the Sword Emperor. Standing in the training hall, memories of the game flooded back. This space was created by the legendary hero Valo Hoa Kin, alongside the establishment of the Academy. It was a completely separate reality. The damage here was real, but the physical space didn't exist because there was no interference from the real world. Here, even murderers were looked down upon. Up on the high platform, Clean Gay and Media Poison were discussing this issue. He was intently observing below and asked, "Why is the royal battle in this space so interesting to the media? Fighting in this space is a tradition of the Academy." "We are. But this year, there's a bit of a change in the royal battle format. The change here is that the students will be divided into groups of 10. Clean Gay commented, "So this is a survival game." Media added unlimited equipment. Clean Gay's voice became much darker. "If there are no limits on equipment, then doesn't that mean the odds are in favor of the upper class?" Media's expression grew colder. "Don't mention it again. I had to negotiate for a long time to get this. Whether you like it or not, this school is funded by the nobles." She couldn't help but voice her complaints. "I went through a lot of trouble to set up this system." Green Gay agreed, "So that's how it is." He suddenly brought up Yama. "Right, he's a special student." At that moment, Yama was blushing and his heart racing watching Aben from afar. "She's incredibly beautiful. Honestly, I thought she was just a 2D character. But those fools were trying to approach her. Or maybe if I didn't know any better like them, I would act the same way. Having played this game, I know Aben is a player with a miraculous blessing. In other words, she's the main character of the game. In the end, someone as beautiful as her, surely someone will fall for her." The zombie let Aben's group pass and quietly decided that, moreover, someone like me, a special student, was not on their level. It's best if I don't get involved to avoid trouble. What are you doing? You pulled out a book and thought about the 3 principles I set for my future safety, completing my studies, securing a stable job, and living a peaceful life. Yoma opened that book. What caught my eye was the image of the heroes who made their mark in history. Heroes. What kind of slow and painful death is that? Just pulling out a knife made my body tremble. I'm still feeling dizzy here. You definitely close that book. You protect the world and I'll find a comfortable job. Suddenly, a strange rhomboid object appeared and announced from the Academy, the test for the 5th year of the 783rd class of Hoakin Academy will now officially begin. I will explain the rules. The zombie thought in surprise, it's starting. The rhomboid object spoke again. As announced, this year will be a royal battle. Both Clean Care and media were listening intently. Among the 10 randomly selected students, the first place will enter the elite class, while second and third will belong to the long class. It continued to explain, ranks 8 to 10 will be placed in the regular class. The noble family's children listened and revealed their arrogant demeanor. The class will be arranged based on the results. This score will be automatically recorded and there's no time limit. Just like in a game, you need to pay attention and think. The goal is to finish quickly and not waste any more time. It's time to wrap up the long speeches and the subspace will gradually open up. Activate the subspace generator. The test begins. I hope the blessings of Hero will be with you. Feel your body gradually lose gravity as you silently strategize, trying not to pull out your weapon. After a time that wasn't too short or too long, the school's announcement sound echoed. Group Assessment 24 is complete. Rank 1 is the Vine, Rank 2. Group Assessment 47 is complete. Rank 1 is Saki Ryoho. Rank 2 is Sarada, while the media continues to chat with Clean Gi, ignoring the chaos below. Now thinking back in this situation, she just opened a control panel and said boredly, Clean Gi, you have a granddaughter and some blood relatives, your vehicle, and Jonggum. The results will change significantly, you know. Speaking of which, media's voice suddenly rose, cutting in. Look at this! 7 minutes and 14 seconds. That was fast. On the screen is the battle scene of Aben. Media keeps talking non-stop. This sea-level weapon reached the 6th record. How is that possible? Green Gi explained that Aben wanted a fair evaluation. She commented that the young man seemed to be quite a tease even though his 6th record hasn't been broken. But the girl is still in the top 10 of the Academy's history. Hearing that, in his words, he couldn't hide his pride. The descendants of the Baelong family, huh? Suddenly, Clean Gay stood up. It seems like it's about to end. I'm leaving now. Media wondered, isn't there still one group left? But to the store, he seems to not take this last group seriously. Probably just a bunch of stragglers left, saying that he waved goodbye. Media said, see you later, teasingly as usual. See you in the next life, old man. However, as soon as those words fell, an event occurred that left everyone from Clean Care to all the students in shock. Media shouted, you felt that too, right? Clean Care, stunned, replied, I can't believe it. The students below were also confused about what was happening, murmuring. Clean Gi fell into deep thought. This aura had never appeared in this building before. Previously, this was a strange sound, and that terrifying aura reappeared, making him and Media alert. The subspace opened, bringing along beautiful fragments. Clean Gi and Media couldn't believe their eyes anymore. The subspace, the pride of the Kinflower, shattered. Something undefined fell from it. The students watched in silence. 2 people had fallen to the ground. It seemed they were the cause of this chaos. The training building's courtyard was filled with chatter. Did someone just fall out of the subspace? In the sky, at this moment, a mysterious light reappeared. Clean Gay's eyes were filled with caution. Then that light revealed itself to be a brand new sashimi knife, almost piercing one of the 2 people. Just as it fell, Media reacted quickly, immediately ordering the medical staff to check the health of the student who just fell out. She kept urging him in a hurry, which was really surprising. One of the 2 fell out of the space, and it was Yoma. He struggled to think, but the outcome was unavoidable anyway. It was fate. Goma recalled the recent battle. At that moment, there was a boy reacting very fiercely to that bastard. Immediately, that boy was grabbed by Maosun by the neck, and before he could resist, his whole body was slammed to the ground, mercilessly. Duma could only watch the scene unfold. Mao Jun and Mao Sun were slaughtering the other students, and unfortunately, it seemed they had fallen into a deadly battle. They were a pair of vicious twins from the royal family competing in that match. Mao Jun continuously wore a cold, mocking face looking down on the weak opponents. Meanwhile, Mao Jun was indeed a scoundrel, squeezing someone else's neck while speaking with contempt. Is it over yet? Keep going. Although they had innate talent, their brutality and duality were unmatched. Yoma angrily cursed in his heart at these bastards. They had been toying with them for 30 minutes now. He stood alone on the field, wondering if he looked too weak. They didn't even bother to pay attention to him meanwhile. The student in Mao Sun's hands was no longer moving. He wondered if he was dead, saying that he emotionlessly tossed the body aside and turned to walk away. Not forgetting to complain, he counted with his hand, 1, 2, 2. Mao Jun seemed not to trust him much and turned to ask, "Hey, how many are there?" At that moment, he was also torturing an unfortunate student. That person was struggling to breathe, pleading for him to stop. Mao Jun had discovered something. Without hesitation, Mao Jun pressed the student deeper into the ground while turning to ask his brother, "Do you want it to end quickly or slowly? It's a hassle." Mao Jun seemed to have no respect for his brother. "You catch 4 of them." Mao Jun ignored him and pointed forward, deciding, "Sorry about that one for you." The person being referred to was Chloe. Mao's son shamelessly remarked, "Well, well," in front of these two utterly inhumane beings. Chloe could only hug herself, trembling in fear. Yama, despite being indifferent to the world, couldn't help but feel uneasy in such a situation. He thought to himself that the one sitting quietly in the corner seemed panicked. She didn't look ready to fight at all. Thinking that he couldn't help but curse, "Damn it!" On the other side, Mao's son was slowly approaching Chloe, his face incredibly vile. Look at that. Mao's son raised his fist, threatening, "This is my style." I wonder what the scream from those delicate lips would sound like. I want to know so badly. Hearing those words, even Mao Jun couldn't help but look down on him. "Even though you're my brother, that's too twisted." Mao Jun didn't pay any attention to this remark. With a contemptuous, fierce expression, he continued, "So, where should I tear you apart from?" Roma couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "You bastard!" All 3 of them turned to look at him. "You're so mad that you can't control your words. Even if this is a public space, you've gone too far. Are you all crazy? You may act tough, but deep down you're cursing yourself for rushing in without thinking." Mao Jun, feeling annoyed, speaks up, "What's this? There's another one." Mao Jun calmly reminds Jun to look at its name tag. The guy immediately notices the green name tag of Yama, and the contempt becomes even more palpable. "Special student, huh? The lowly one." The Mao brothers exchange glances and simultaneously break into a disdainful smile. Mao Jun quickly steps forward and says, "Let me handle this swiftly." Mao Jun looks at the bloody ground below and nods, slightly agreeing with the idea. "Since that guy dared to insult us, let's cut out his tongue." Mao Jun replies with a wicked grin, "Got it." At this moment, Roma finds himself in a dilemma. His mind is a tangled mess. "Damn it, what should I do? Should I use the blessing of the void? No, they've been rampaging for 30 minutes already. What good is avoiding pain for 30 seconds? Suddenly he stops as if remembering something. The sashimi knives in his bag gleam as if urging Yoma to use them. Remembering the painful experiences before, he snaps, "But if I hold the sword, the blessing will activate automatically." Yoma seems to have made a normal decision in his heart. "No storm safe. My decision hasn't even been half a day yet." Damn it. Mao's son looks at the unfolding scene, speaking in confusion. What's this? Who would have thought Yama would pull out a sashimi knife? This leaves the two Mao brothers stunned, frozen in place. After a moment, they burst into laughter. Damn it, is this a joke? The jerk Mao Jun, ready for a fight, angrily says, "You've got some interesting stuff going on, so I'll help you feel as little pain as possible." Then without warning, he uses his heavy body to leap into the air. Mao's son from above threatens loudly, "I'll smash your head in first." Yoma is already in a fighting stance. This isn't a situation where he can be picky. Just 30 seconds. It should have some effect. As that thought drops, he uses the blessing of the void. The system also displays a notification. For 30 seconds, all pain will be erased thanks to the blessing. Activation time 30 seconds. Cool down 12 hours. The blessing of the sword, God, has been activated. With this blessing, it will counteract the pain from the sword god's blessing. Mao Sun, while attacking, scoffs, "How can you use such a pathetic sword?" The jerk zombie looks up, observing, "If I get hit, I'll die from that sashimi knife's weight." His pupils contract at the life-threatening danger. Not a fish, but a human. In a moment of life and death, the zombie recalls a conversation with his master earlier. Why do thugs in movies use sashimi knives? Can sashimi knives really cut people? Can a sashimi knife really cut people? It's not just fish, you know. Your master was really angry at that moment. That crazy guy was just in the movie. He shouted furiously, "If God comes, it won't matter, you idiot." Escaping from the memory, Yoma watched Mao Sun approaching and thought, "If I get cut, it will be the end." A beam of light flashed in the darkness like a guiding light from God. Mao Sun charged forward, screaming, "Die, you bastard!" At the same time, Yama also made a move towards him. With that strike, our holy sword returned. With just a sashimi knife, you severed the giant's arm. The fierce aura in Yoma's eyes had not completely faded. He coldly watched Mao Sun fall freely to the ground, silently wishing, "I hope God's blessing will be with you." Just as he turned Mao Sun into a cripple, Yama fell back into memories of his master. Back then, he had asked him, "Master, why do the thugs in movies?" Suddenly, he felt a chilling sensation sweep across his neck. Yama turned pale. A sashimi knife was deeply embedded in the wall. It was just a hair's breadth away from piercing him. His master sternly reminded him, "I told you to call me teacher." Plus, he wondered what that was for. If you looked closely, you would see he was missing a hand. But he was also an excellent chef. Yama's first teacher was a former thug. To atone for his sins, he had cut off one hand. After that, he opened a sashimi shop because he wanted to use his knife skills to make people happy. His skills were truly impressive. Dumas thought so and then asked his teacher, "Why do thugs in movies always use sashimi knives?" "I'm curious if it's true in real life," he said. "Once you reach a certain level with a knife, you shouldn't be asking such questions." He was cutting fish on the board while explaining, "Think about it. If you stab someone with a large kitchen knife, the skin will start to contract. Do you think you can pull it out? A sashimi knife is very small, so you can stab multiple times and easily pull it out." He was very confused. How can you stab just one cut can slice the fish, but not a person? People can't. Hearing this silly question, the chef immediately got angry. If the fish is on the board, what's to worry about chopping it? If they could stand, then they would be dreaming of being chopped. Dumas, lacking a beating, continued, "In the comic, each stab is very quick and clean. It's just that the master lacks skill." He got angry, and then there was a brutal blow. "You little brat, I'm your teacher, not your boss. And even if the knife god did it, it wouldn't mean anything. Got it?" Back to the battle with Mao Jun. He still couldn't believe his arm had just been severed from his body. A cold sweat rolled down his round face. Both Mao Jun and Chloe doubted their own eyes. Only Yama stood still like a silent reaper, as if some hidden attack was about to unfold. The cries of pain and curses from Mao Sun echoed through the air. "Damn it, you bastard!" Tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. A proud man had lost an arm. The psychological shock was too great. My hand! Mao Sun clutched his aching, blood-soaked arm, moaning. The pain was so intense that fear spread. He collapsed to the ground and shouted at Joma, who was approaching. "Don't come near. I told you not to come near." But he still slowly advanced, like a demon just stepping out of hell. Mao Sun used all his strength to stand up and ran. "Help! Help me!" He still hadn't recovered from what had just happened. Mao Sun ran towards him as if he had found a straw to cling to. "Save me! Save that bastard!" His eyes were bloodshot from panic. "Hurry up! What's meant to happen will happen!" Mao Jun had just shouted the word "die" when the sashimi knife greeted his throat, blood spraying everywhere. It was Mao Jun's turn to collapse onto the ground, overwhelmed by the sudden horror. He looked at his brother's body in front of him, sweating from fear. Mao Sun's wide-open eyes stared at him like a wordless accusation. He looked at his younger brother in front of him, sweating in fear. Mao Sun's wide-open eyes stared at him like a silent accusation. Mao Jun couldn't keep his cool anymore. He shouted, "Jun Jun!" While they weren't paying attention, Yama quietly moved closer, and Chloe watched in horror. She wanted to say something, but everything just got stuck in her throat. Mao Jun was trying to reassure himself, staying calm. This was an empty space, that knife. Sun wasn't really dead yet. He looked at Cho-ma, who was motionless next to Mao Sun's corpse. Even so, what was wrong with that bastard? He wasn't quite sure, but it seemed like it was the first time he had acted like this. Mao Jun struggled to stand up, his breath coming in quick, shaky gasps. Was this just a coincidence? I definitely need to be careful with that knife. He gently picked up Mao Jun's severed arm. Jun's mistake was being too complacent, if that's the case. Mao Jun strapped his brother's weapon onto his arm and shouted, "This weapon will unleash its full power if worn on both arms." Immediately, he was determined to bless and enhance his defense. His muscles bulged as if they were enhanced, the blessing of strength amplified by 200%. The spirit blessing empowered his fists, seemingly giving him an extra 200% confidence. Mao Jun smirked with disdain, activating it instantly. This is an A-grade weapon that commoners wouldn't even dare dream of. His hands were filled with overwhelming power that couldn't be underestimated. I don't know where you found that sword, but even an S-grade weapon can't match its power. I'm not like that Sun guy. It's hard to believe that Yama was speaking softly at this moment. Countdown 23, 22, 21. Mao Jun's terrifying fists were coming at him. He shouted, "Why are you just standing there like an idiot? Are you frozen or what?" He threatened, "I'll smash your head." Mao Jun's fists were just inches away from Yama's head. That was all, and yet he still didn't pay attention and continued counting down 765. What the hell? An unbelievable thing happened. Mao Jun's gigantic body was pierced with swords. His whole body was soaked in blood, falling down next to his equally wicked brother. One of them still wasn't dead. His body trembled, staring blankly at what was in front of him. Yama had counted down to the final numbers 3, 2. When he got to 1, he seemed to be stimulated and woke up. Mao Jun's eyes slowly closed. He had been rejected by the king. Yama counted down to 0, ending everything. His body still trembled uncontrollably. The system also displayed a notification the time limit for the Void God's power had expired. Just as the notification dropped, Yoma quickly yelled out in pain from using divine power. Time passed slowly as Yoma gradually woke up. He silently observed the strange room he was in. After a month of contemplation, Yoma speculated, "Is this a hospital?" He tried to sit up, but the pain made him groan involuntarily. A serious-looking male teacher pushed the door open and saw Cho-ma was able to sit up. He shouted to someone outside, "This student is awake!" Immediately, a man and a woman entered the room. Cho-ma was shocked, recognizing the unfamiliar faces. But he remembered them. The ones who entered were Wems and Media Poison. 55 years ago, they defeated the Demon King, the commander of the 6th Legion, 2 out of 7 elite heroes. Looking at the zombie, he silently admired the strongest human 6 freeze. Then he looked at Media, the head of the Holy Academy. Media Poison asked him kindly, "Are you okay?" Doma mechanically replied, "Yes, I'm fine." Then he couldn't help but wonder why these two were only speaking up now. "What's your name?" he instinctively replied, "Doma." The man's face became eager and intimidating. "Get straight to the point, Doma," John Jay interrogated. "What exactly did you do?" John Ma recalled the atmosphere at that time. It wasn't just imagination. He had actually done that. He seemed to have realized something. John Ma looked at the long sword in John Jay's hand, pinned down by this monster. It wasn't a good sign, so he quickly reported it. "Even if it was just a void space, I think their actions have crossed the line. However, I also think my actions were somewhat excessive. I voluntarily accept any punishment." Saying that, both Yama and Yomre stared at each other. He seemed to want to draw something out from what he said. Suddenly, Media spoke up, cutting through this silent confrontation. "How could you treat a child like that, you old fool?" she said, then sat on the bed, a bit perverted, while caressing Yoma's body, even when she said that. "Secret was the one who stopped the bleeding for you when you passed out. People often say the older you get, the more grumpy you become. Isn't that right?" Then Media raised her hand to her mouth playfully, "Except for this face of mine." John immediately exploded in anger. "I told you not to say that." Media took the opportunity, hugging John's strong body while mocking, "Look at that old man, he's so embarrassed. You can't help but be amazed, can you? Why is Media still lost in her own happiness? Oh, look at those shoulders." Meanwhile, Yoma felt his body and thought, "No wonder my body feels as light as a feather." More like drenched in tears, Media brightly told Yoma, "While you were unconscious, we extracted the tape and watched it with the staff." She recalled excitedly, The scene where you risked yourself to protect a poor girl was truly like a prince in a dream. Media's saliva was dripping. No, you are definitely a prince. For someone who doesn't know shame like this, Jumjae couldn't bear to watch any longer and spoke up. Media was continuously interrupted and she got a bit annoyed. I know already. This old man Jumjae finished the sentence. Keep some dignity, will you? Regain the respect of a principal. Media reassured Yoma. Your actions in the test were nothing wrong, so there's no need to worry. The truth is those Mao twins got into the academy because they flattered the elders. After finishing her sentence, she looked at Yoma with a greedy gaze. Truly intriguing, you must understand that. You couldn't help but to feel lucky thinking, wow, it seems I won't have to deal with them at school anymore. Yomjae was quiet for a while before speaking up. We came to inform you. Yoma was startled. Yes, thank you, teacher. Media couldn't help but exclaim, Yama, you are one of the top scoring students. Congratulations, you were completely taken aback by her words. Making you doubt your own ears, huh? Yama felt like he was falling into an endless black hole, internally screaming, what safe sound healthy? A tall, majestic white building appeared. From the outside, one could see inside the room where Media was sitting sighing. She held a cup of tea feeling bored and said, I've been the principal for nearly 25 years now. This is the first time something like this has happened. Remembering the earlier conversation with Yoma, he had replied irritably, I don't want to. Both Media and Poison, along with Yomjae, were stunned upon hearing this. At that moment, Media said, do you know, Yama, don't you understand what the advanced class means? Did I hear that wrong? While the elders were very angry, a decision regarding the top student was made based on the results graded directly in the afternoon. The space fell silent for a moment. However, you still firmly refused, but I still don't want to. This left the two old people extremely confused. John Rhee was silent, looking at him with a somewhat evaluative gaze. Media spoke John Rhee. That call pulled him back to reality. Media sitting across from him said, are you still upset because John Emma took the top position from your granddaughter? Why do you keep looking down at your feet? Why do you keep looking down at your feet? John casually picked up his teacup and replied, it's really foolish. There's nothing more foolish than doubting. The judgment of the space within it holds the will of the founding hero. The Academy chose him as the leader, so we might as well just go along with that decision. That's what he said on the outside, but inside he was still conflicted. If the kid's abilities were truly outstanding, then he could understand. If his physical strength was extraordinary, he would accept it. If he was very experienced, he would nod in agreement. But what does a kid who hasn't even matured yet show? John recalled the image of John Ma fighting with a strength that seemed to tear apart the very fabric of space, striking at human consciousness. It left him in awe. Every movement seemed to contain some kind of concept. The swordsmanship I have pursued my entire life. And yet I felt a sense of unease when opening up the blood vessels for him. As he assessed Yoma's condition, Yomre evaluated. A weak body lacking decisiveness, never having undergone physical training. It felt like something shouldn't be suppressed was existing within him. Returning to reality, Jumjae closed his eyes and sighed at this age. He set the teacup down and thought again about how competitive this was. Moreover, it was against a kid the same age as his granddaughter. Suddenly, Media's voice rang out, breaking his train of thought. That face was quite pleasant to look at. And the way she defeated the enemy to rescue a frightened girl, too. If I could be young again. Well, this age is still fine, right? Hey, old man, what do you think? What, As she spoke, she smiled at Jumjae, leaving him speechless. Eventually, he spoke up. Do you know what the students call women your age? Media, confused, asked back then, put on a nonchalant expression, and said clearly, show me. What do they call someone like me? Media placed the teacup down on the table, her movement not gentle at all. She frowned, showing her annoyance. In response to Media's confusion, Ji blurted out each word, old hag. Hearing this, Media immediately became furious. That pressure made the whole room tremble. At the academy, John Ma stood in front of a door. The sign read, Gulf Class. This made him feel disheartened. This was the best deal he had received. Remembering the fierce debate back in the hospital, Media had raised her voice, insisting he should be sent to a higher class. Roma said, Dear principal, I want to go to the Tiger class. Her suggestion only fueled the fire in Media's heart. How could the top student go to that class? Isn't our academy based on equality? Even so, the Tiger class is out of the question. After a long discussion, Media was drenched in sweat. She said, "Instead, I'll keep it a secret for you." Media couldn't help but feel anxious, thinking if we place him in the tiger class, the elders will make a big deal out of it. Yoma, on the other hand, looked at her with confusion. Returning to reality, he thought to himself, my plan is to complete my studies in a lower class. It's better than competing with higher-ranked classes. As he thought, he slowly pushed the door open, feeling helpless and letting out a sigh. At least this was still within his control. After entering, the door slammed shut behind him, startling him. He stood there confused under the attention of the entire auditorium. Everyone stopped their personal activities to look at him. At this moment, they noticed his name tag read Yoma. He wasn't a figure of influence, so no one cared. They continued chatting and laughing among themselves. Not paying him any mind, Roma walked down the stairs while silently praying. Please, just keep ignoring me. When he finally found a seat he liked, he felt relieved. Wow, completely overlooked. It seems the principal tried to keep the information confidential. The lonely one has his own way of living. This might be a good thing. As he thought, he smiled and hummed. Suddenly, something caught his attention. It was Chloe, who appeared shy and embarrassed. Chloe approached him to greet, "Excuse me, thank you for what you've done." This surprise left him a bit stunned. Jia-ma remained silent, not saying a word. Chloe approached and greeted him. "Excuse me, thank you for what you've done." This surprise left him a bit astonished. Jia-ma remained silent, not saying a word. With a puzzled expression, Chloe blushed and continued, "I only remembered that during the test because of the ghost." You wondered, why is she using such a formal tone? We're the same age, you know. But you smiled brightly and replied, "No need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same in that situation." Doma thought to himself, even though it seems like I saved her in the end, I was just trying to survive. I feel like a hypocrite. Then Yama opened up. Now that I think about it, we haven't introduced ourselves yet. I'm Yama. Chloe smiled back. I'm Chloe. It's nice to meet you. You spoke in a friendly tone. Chloe, I didn't expect us to be in the same class. Chloe beamed and replied, I'm really happy to meet you too. After a moment of getting to know each other, you tilted your head in confusion, asking, Chloe, who is that? I've played almost all the games, but I don't know this character's name. As far as I remember, the main storyline and the second half focus on fighting against the demon race. This new character is really unexpected. Doma suddenly misunderstood. She's just a background character like me. You said, oh, right, by the way, can you keep a secret about what happened during the test? Chloe cheerfully replied, of course I can. At that moment, she seemed about to say something when suddenly someone walked in and loudly interrupted her. Everyone back to your seats. Yama looked at Chloe and said, let's talk later. She could only regretfully murmur, oh. The instructor placed a stack of documents on the desk and announced loudly, first of all, congratulations on being selected. The instructor stood at the podium with a proud expression. You are all here because you have been chosen to inherit the will of the founding hero Valor Dragon. It's a great honor. My name is Lee Wan-bin, your homeroom teacher for this class. Today is the first day, so we'll start with some simple physical exercises. Please change your clothes and gather at the training field in 30 minutes. At this moment, a student wearing glasses raised his hand and asked, what kind of training will it be, sir? Wan-bin replied, it's simple. Just 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats. After that, just run 10 laps around the training field. If there are no more questions, please change your clothes and gather at the training field. Everyone started to disperse. Only Yoma remained staring helplessly, thinking that these exercises were meant to turn students into bald soldiers. He approached the podium and called out, excuse me, teacher. Wan-bin asked, what's the matter, student? You were surprised. How does he know my name? But that wasn't important right now. The issue was, you needed an excuse to avoid participating in this boring training. I feel a bit unwell, you said. Wan-bin thought for a moment and then replied, all right. This training session is really going to help you get stronger. How about switching to advanced training? The principal has allowed me to join all the Yoma classes, and I was stunned for 5 seconds. Damn, what is that woman hiding? Remembering Media's promises made his mouth twitch. Doma quickly regained his composure, scratched his head, and smiled awkwardly, replying, no need for that, sir. I think just resting in the lounge for a bit will be enough. Just when I was feeling a bit tired, this schedule turned out to be just right for me. Wan-bin exclaimed, no wonder this is the top academy. See you at training. Yama replied, yes, sir. Outside on the training field, Yama was sweating profusely, panting heavily. His steps felt heavy on the ground as the instructor's voice urged him on. 1, 2. Don't be lazy. Pick up the pace. Hurry! The whole class was running ahead, leaving Yoma behind, still trying to catch up. He felt like he was about to collapse and couldn't help but mutter, "Damn it." The instructor's voice continued to ring out, 1, 2, faster. Chloe ran over worried and asked, "Is it too hard?" Looking at him, Doma was shocked and replied, "Yeah." Even though he was exhausted, he still managed to smile and said, "I'm fine, Chloe." She asked him, "How many laps have you run, Joma?" Joma replied, "Probably 5 laps. What about you, Chloe?" Chloe innocently responded, "I'm on my 9th lap already." Joma couldn't believe his ears. Chloe clenched her fists and cheered, "You can do it." She quickly ran ahead while Joma was still lagging behind. The sun was setting. In the room, empty water bottles were scattered all over the floor. There were also 2 bottles on the table that had run dry. Joma slammed a bottle down on the table, sprawled out on the bed, and sighed. "Damn, I'm so hungry." Life in the academy for a week had led me to an unexpected problem. In the dining hall, all the students had gathered to enjoy the delicious food. After a grueling training session, Yama couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out in front of everyone, "I'm so hungry." He rushed to the food counter and requested, "1 serving of pork, please." "Please, hurry!" The chef shot a sharp glance at Yama, pausing to look at a box of meal tickets. He wondered, aren't they supposed to be free? Yama quickly replied, "I'll go get a ticket right now. 1 serving of pork, please." But suddenly he froze. Yama's eyes inadvertently caught sight of the dining hall's price list, 50,001 for a serving of pork belly. He stood there in disbelief, muttering, 50,000, 50,001, 50,001 for pork. He stood there like a statue, subconsciously repeating, 50,000, 50,001. The last drops of water dripped down, bringing him back to reality. Doma was upside down, squeezing the last drops from his water bottle. Then he angrily threw the bottle away, cursing, "Damn it, 50,001 for a serving of pork. That's just highway robbery." His eyes were blazing with rage as if he wanted to kill someone. "I'm starving. Just stop ripping us off. I'm running low on my living expenses." Yoma remembered when his dad gave him money. He had refused without hesitation. Looking back at the harsh reality, he felt deflated, utterly powerless. Yoma curled up in his blanket. He buried himself in the blanket, regretting, "I should have taken that money. I'm such an idiot. I've been surviving on the cheapest water in the academy for days now," and suddenly the screen displayed a message, "If injured, you will be disabled. Since your physical condition has improved, the requirements for the sword will be relaxed. The blessing can only be activated for swords shorter than 30 centimeters, and with a width of less than 5 centimeters. Yama, feeling a bit lost in thought, realized that just thinking about it made the status window appear. But then you jumped up in front of the mirror, your tank top lifted, revealing your 6-pack abs. You smiled satisfied, saying it was definitely worth the effort. The zombie looked down at his hands in amazement. "The blessing of the sword god has really opened up my veins. At this rate, I'll reach a new level. The blessing from the sword god hasn't leveled up yet, but if I keep improving step by step, I'll soon be able to wield a powerful sword." "Well," the zombie glanced at the 2 sharp knives on the table and smiled. "Just the other day at the entrance ceremony, I was terrified of touching a sword, but now I can't even hold one. Just a minute and my hands and feet will start to itch. Is this the effect of the blessing? Am I being a bit too proud?" Suddenly a knock on the door startled him. "Who is it?" Yoma opened the door, asking in a curt tone. Outside was Chloe, still shy, her face a bit worried. She hesitantly asked if she was disturbing your rest. "Chloe, why is she here?" Yama wondered, but still cheerfully replied, "Not at all, I'm just lying down. What's up?" Chloe lowered her head and carefully explained that she hadn't seen you in the cafeteria for a week, and she was worried you weren't feeling well. On the outside, Yoma smiled and said, "Oh, I'm just not used to eating other people's cooking," while inside he was drooling. "I actually love it." Hearing this, Chloe felt relieved. "I understand," she reassured. "Don't worry." Suddenly, Chloe hesitated and suggested, "If it's okay, Yoma, I was thinking of buying some ingredients from the grocery store in the academy to cook dinner." Before she could finish her sentence, Yoma had already put on his jacket. You smiled brightly and said, "Then let's go." Chloe was taken aback. Yoma continued, Aren't you inviting me to have dinner with you? She hadn't quite caught up with his words and actions. Right, yes. Yoma hummed happily as he walked down the hallway. I'm really good at cooking, so let me take care of it. Seeing this, Chloe joyfully ran after him. Then Yoma added, Chloe's dorm is on the other side of the street, right? Let's go together then. Outside, the sky had turned to night, revealing twinkling stars. Only a few windows were still lit. Inside Chloe's room, she was eating and exclaiming how delicious it was. Yoma replied, If you like it, then I'm happy. Chloe continued, You didn't leave anything out, and you're really quick, too. Yoma fell silent for a moment, looking down at the empty plate, and said, I only know how to boil fish. I've never cooked before. Let me check the fridge. Yoma looked into the fridge filled with boxes of fish and was surprised. But you really like fish. Chloe replied, Yeah, I'm from a river region. You said that's awesome because my specialty is fish dishes. Yoma thought to himself, Good, because my hands and feet are itching a lot. Let's try making sashimi again. But the issue was the blessing from the sword god. Yoma looked at the knife rack with a bit of hesitation, then turned to ask, Do you have a longer knife? Chloe asked back, Longer. He explained, That's right. You know my weapon is a sword, so I think using a knife like this is a bit odd. She replied, I understand. He explained, That's right. You know my weapon is a sword like this, so I think using a knife like this is a bit odd. She said she understood. Later, Chloe didn't ask anything more. A little while later, while Yoma was busy in the kitchen, Chloe spoke up cheerfully, presenting her sword and asking, Is this okay? This left Yoma speechless. He felt helpless and said no. I only use kitchen knives. That's not going to work. He grabbed the kitchen knife, activated the blessing of the sword god, and nervously told himself he had to finish this in 30 seconds. Then he started to handle the fish, thinking to himself that he was known as the #1 swordsman, so he could do it. Yoma encouraged himself as the blessing of the sword god began to take effect. With just a few sharp cuts, the plate of fish on the table was spotless. Yoma thought to himself, 21 seconds until I separate the bones. He removed the fish fins and filleted the meat, then smiled in satisfaction at his work. Yama felt proud. It was excellent, like a masterpiece. I'm still alive, Chloe exclaimed. How can you cook so well? He replied, I used to work part-time at a Japanese restaurant. Chloe was astonished. Part-time? Really? Yoma asked back, Did you not know what a part-time job is? This made Chloe a bit shy. I'm sorry. Junma laughed and said, No need to apologize. You're thinking just like I thought. This class difference. Junma cheerfully said, Anyway, I'm really glad you liked this meal. Chloe was extremely excited, nodding continuously. She volunteered to wash the dishes since he had prepared the meal. Yoma, not wanting to be rude, replied, Thank you, then I'll leave it to you. Saying that Chloe busily got to work while Yoma relaxed, swinging back and forth, feeling full and content. The moonlight was beautiful, making him want to hum a tune. Just as he was about to enjoy it, the clattering of dishes rang out, accompanied by a clumsy voice. I'm sorry, Yoma said, sweating profusely. Then there were more clattering sounds. Chloe panicked, fumbling, I'm sorry. Yama found it a bit amusing as he watched her back. He thought, I wonder if she has ever washed dishes before. Right at that age, I had already washed dishes too. While he was standing there admiring the moon, something fell from the shelf. It was a book blown open by the wind, revealing its contents. Yoma was astonished. Is this a diary? Just then a page appeared with content related to him. I was helped by someone during the placement test. Today I must repay that person. Yama sighed. The writing was round and cute. Picking up the notebook, he smiled and thought, I should just put it back. Chloe really resembled other girls her age. Suddenly, at that moment, the wind blew, flipping to other pages. Yoma felt a bit awkward having flipped to another page. He looked down in amazement at the content of this page. It turned out that the friend who helped him was in the same class as him. His name was Yoma. My heart raced. I didn't even know what to do. I couldn't dare to talk to him. After reading, he exclaimed, Oh! Yama smiled, thinking it was so cute. Now I finally know the reason, so that's why you couldn't talk to me. The corners of Yama's mouth lifted mischievously. Should I read a bit more? The title was bolded with his name, Yama. The following pages continuously wrote, I love him. I love him. I love him. This left Yama speechless. The The phrase, "I love him," stunned him. The sound of dishes clattering shattered the silence. As Chloe stood beside him, the plate shattered into pieces. Looking at his diary in hand, Yoma then asked, "Did you see it?" The heroic clans earn respect by defeating monsters, gaining admiration from society, and solidifying their status. However, in these stagnant organizations, there still exist benefits granted to exploit the poor under the guise of governance. When the government lost all its power, a heroic clan rose up. Cloaked in darkness, that clan is the Auditor of Sicily, a family that operates in the shadows to reach the light, combining maintaining order with assassination. In a context of brutality, those born into the Auditor clan must undergo a nerve test before puberty to eliminate emotions. They must endure very harsh training. Chloe was surprised, her eyes wide open at the prospect she had to face. The man before her seemed to have no strength left. He was her target. Along with the seriousness of the old man, Chloe felt fear. Her body trembled, but her hands still gripped the sword tightly. The old man placed his hand on hers to help her calm down. To become an assassin, the age when a girl first gets her hands stained with blood, is 15. After taking down her target, she becomes indifferent, her hands and sword stained red. Yet it is through harshness that a strong spirit is forged. "Chloe, Auditor of Sicily, do not deny your assassination talent," the old man said, and Chloe felt a bit dazed. That was something she had heard long before she matured. Chloe had accepted it. Regarding reality, she gently pulled up her face veil. Her sword skills to take down enemies became proficient, and her appearance was now tougher than before. The relentless training twisted her spirit, creating a deep shadow in her heart, and so it went on, until her rationality completely vanished, and only a few traces of emotion remained. Chloe had reached the age for school. The picturesque and somewhat elegant scenery highlighted the academy, making it magnificent. More than ever, in front of Chloe, there were many students bustling around. This was Drakeen Academy, where students would be classified based on their skills. Although every member of the Auditor clan was a dark element, they clearly possessed skills above the standard level. Chloe felt excited and thought they were all placed in the regular class due to family tradition. That was the clan's agreement with the academy. Suddenly, she remembered the old man's reminder, "Stay out of my sight." That thought made her a bit melancholic as Chloe sadly reflected on what she had to endure. 3 years of youth had been taken from her by the clan, losing all personal freedom. Faced with the fate of becoming an assassin, Chloe never complained. She had accepted it, not even thinking of ways to change it, just continuing on. That's what she thought. Until she met a male student in the gloomy setting. Suddenly there was a shout, "Hey, you jerk, are you out of your mind? You bastard, don't touch her!" Roma had just finished speaking when Mao Sun began to notice him with a slightly annoyed expression. In the royal battle in the space of the child, even if this death wasn't real, it would still be the first time she had to experience death. She felt no fear. Now she was hugging herself because of the cold weather when she was startled to realize there was another person inside. Who else is there? Chloe calmly accepted the predetermined death. She had long given up on futile resistance. That was how she learned to live, and she had always lived that way. Back to reality, Mao Sun now looked at the guy with a very amused smile. "I'll kill you first, then her right." Nothing could change that now. Chloe could only look at what was in front of her. Her fate had been sealed. A red ray sliced through, or it was already predetermined. Chloe stared intently, but it felt as if the sunlight had chased away the dark clouds in a storm. Something was burning fiercely in her heart, a sword wielded with all her mind. The images of Yoma striking down Mao Sun looked very majestic, gradually creeping into her eyes. The image of Chloe being bullied by those people made Yoma rise up for justice. A sword was drawn to protect someone. She was the reason that male student wielded his sword. The scene of Chloe by the bedside in her memories evoked her childhood. She always remembered the fairy tale story that she had secretly hidden beside her bed, flipping through the pages of the fairy tale from her childhood. She had been very happy about the prince trapped in the castle with the brave prince before her eyes. Returning to the present, Yoma now appears to Chloe like a savior. He looks so strong and determined, holding a knife that radiates a powerful energy. A story revolves around how the prince appears and helps everyone. Chloe cradles her face, her cheeks flush, and her heart begins to race. An indescribable vague feeling starts to rise within her. Chloe stands still lost in deep thoughts. Despite the chaos around her, she has only one thought in mind. Chloe is now in a state of infatuation. This is love. After the battle, Yoma looks quite worried and speechless, while Chloe appears with a fierce expression. She radiates a red glow, feeling shy, scratching her head. In the room, the current situation has everyone silent, just looking at each other. Dorma feels flustered and sweats, thinking, "Did I do something wrong?" Swallowing hard, I see this girl as pure. Or am I just being foolish, following her for a meal? Roma speaks up. "Isn't the moonlight beautiful tonight?" There's no response. Continuing, "Thank you for this. It's been a long time since I've had such a good meal." He smiles warmly. "I'll head back now. See you tomorrow." Chloe's voice chimes in. "Did you see that?" Stopping in his tracks, he replies, "Huh, what do you mean?" Chloe says as she takes off her gloves. Zombie looks surprised and notices the notebook on the table, speaking hurriedly. "Are you talking about this notebook?" "You must have studied really hard," Chloe exclaims loudly. "It's my diary." Zombie trembles, thinking, "Do you have eyes in the back of your head or something? When did you see that? Moreover, that tone you always use. I told you to change it, and now I have to make her change again." "You said I didn't see anything," Chloe replies. "Haven't you seen anything?" The exchange continues. I didn't see anything." "Don't lie. Yes, I saw it." Just as the words drop, the scene returns to silence. Yama is startled as Chloe begins to draw her sword, her expression filled with anger. Roma is flustered, still overwhelmed by her emotions. Roma feels a jolt of fear. No, it's not the scene outside. It's the 4th floor, the highest level, and he doubts himself. "If I jump from here, I'll be a mess." His mood is unstable, coupled with calculations that can't go wrong. Yama thinks about the knife he used earlier. "No, I can't go that far. I'll definitely lose a leg or an arm." Chloe, with an expressionless face, holds the sword intending to draw it and attack forward. Yoma is no longer calm. Suddenly, a beam of light emanates from the knife, catching his attention. Chloe is at her peak, truly preparing to swing her sword at Yoma. Yoma is startled, his eyes wide open. Seizing the opportunity, Yoma quickly grabs the knife with precision. He pushes the blade out with force, and the system interface begins to display a series of skills being activated. The mental state words and actions temporarily carry a threatening aura. The power is being adjusted more appropriately. Moreover, the guardian spirit of the sword god has been activated. The knife is now energized, so the strike begins to sharpen and become more powerful. May the blessings of the Lord always be with you as a brilliant blue light surrounds them. While Chloe is trying to advance to attack him, a beam of light appears in his hand. Joma speaks. "Chloe, your hair is getting a bit long." His words leave Chloe stunned. "Do you want me to help you cut it?" Red beams streak past each other, creating artistic cuts in Chloe's bedroom. Chloe's figure is lying on the bed, slowly sitting up. She rubs her head and mumbles Roma's name, searching around the room. Curiously, she asks, "Where are you, Joma?" Chloe feels shy, remembering the moment she shyly looked at Joma. "I remember looking out the window while washing up." She had peeked a little. The girl suddenly realizes that something feels different. Suddenly panicking, she flipped the blanket to look for her. She had to shout, "My sword!" Chloe discovered her sword resting right next to her desk. She let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness I often lose consciousness when I hold the sword." Chloe recalled her past. A voice of an old man echoed, "Well done, Chloe." She was quite surprised, not understanding what had just happened. "What did my master say?" Chloe continued. "Don't worry. Don't deny your assassination talent." Chloe gazed at the sword thoughtfully. She felt embarrassed and buried her face in the pillow. She scolded herself, "You silly girl! Why did you faint at that moment, Jom?" At that, her face suddenly flushed. Her voice stumbled, unable to form words. She doubted herself. "Did I say something strange while I was unconscious?" Chloe curiously looked at the paper cutter on the floor. She fiddled with her hair. "Why is the paper cutter on the ground?" She was quite surprised to look at her own hair. It seemed like her hair had gotten shorter. "Was that cutter used to cut my hair?" She slowly approached the trash can to check. It seemed like he had cleaned up and left. Chloe thought, Yoma is really kind. Her face lit up with happiness at the thought of Yoma. "I should write this down in my journal before I forget." Immediately, she pulled out her journal. Chloe happily finished writing in her journal. On the journal page appeared neatly written words, "Yoma, I like you." As the scene shifted away from Chloe's room, Zona was reeling. He immediately leaned against a wall and vomited. He reflected on the scene from earlier. I got through that situation. The image of the system at that moment rang out announcing, "The blessing of the void has ended." He silently calculated, "I took too long, 5 seconds over the 9-second mark." And then this happened. Suddenly the nausea returned to Yama. He grimaced. "Not again. I'm about to throw up everything I ate for dinner." After a while, Yama finally found some peace. He sat on a chair, looking at the night sky, sighing wearily. His expression was one of frustration. "Dinner is ruined. I'm so hungry, Chloe." He gazed at the moon, pondering, what is usually the purpose of a swordsman, to take a life with a single strike or to subdue them? Yama thought of Chloe wielding her sword. However, the sword Chloe used seemed to continuously target weak points as if it was specifically meant for assassination. He began to contemplate, if I were ambushed, my head would surely roll. Yama recalled the moment he used his strength to retaliate against Chloe. Feeling his life threatened, he swung his sword at her, instinctively aiming for her neck. Luckily, the knife was short, only cutting into her hair. Zombie sighed again. He raised his hand to check his body and thought, "I cleaned up quickly, so I probably left no traces behind. Staying safe and secure is not easy at all." They often say that living a normal life is the hardest, but this is even scarier. The truth is, it's my first time playing this shameless game. I'm filled with ambition. The one who reaches the peak uses a sashimi knife. The atmosphere around him grew tense. Yama continued to ponder giving up the romance of a man. It's not an easy task, but everyone has their own mission. A dazzling light appeared. Miracle Blessing was the name of the game, and the blessing was given to the main character of this world, the one I have yet to meet. Along with the blessing of courage, I remembered there are only 2 legendary blessings in this game. They all belong to intuition. A red pleading text appeared. "Please save the world from the demon lord." Goma recalled the plot and the main character. The system board appeared granting an SS-level blessing, a legendary sword called True that could give the user almost absolute power. But this sword will choose its master. You think about it. The sword and the demon sword will choose. On the contrary, your knife appears Daiso Sashimi. The sashimi knife can slice very quickly. Even though the packaging is a bit ordinary, it's a quality product. Do you still need an explanation? Yama then slapped his own cheeks with both hands. He shouted, "Focus more as you enter this academy." Continuously facing numbers in surreal situations, Yama looked at the shooting star streaking across the night sky. He said it made him forget his goals. Many reasons have held him back. He pondered for 4 hours before thinking, is there really not a single normal person in this academy? I don't really understand the key characters in this game, but my knowledge of this world isn't much either. It's only been a little over a week since I started studying at this academy. The main character appeared, and they had completed the enrollment procedures. This means the story of this game is really about to begin. I know the general plot, but I don't know how it ends. Lost in thought, I can't believe I regret for having abandoned this game. Of course, knowing the main story up to the middle is a clear advantage. No matter what happens, just follow the official path. He hesitated about which path to choose. The sign on the left says, "I want to live a quiet life." The sign on the right asks, "Will I become a leader?" He thought, if everything gets messed up, all my efforts will go to waste. If I remember correctly, the 3rd phase will start from the 2nd semester of the 3rd year, sensing the birth of a hero. The demons will unite their forces under the demon lord, and the threat to the academy will only grow larger. Eventually, a world war will break out between the factions and the people, but the game's plot will follow a rather cliché motif. What's bothering you, Ghost? Why did it suddenly take a turn here? I'm just chasing a brilliant youth, never having experienced a teenage phase. You frown, feeling strange as you stare at your phone. How could they die like that? That's a bit scary. I'm really attached to these characters now. I guess I'll just delete this game. What's even scarier is that something terrible has happened in this world. You sit alone staring at the starry sky of war. Am I going to die in this war too? There's still almost 3 years left. Right now, my most realistic goal is to escape this absurd place. Zombies look down at the ground. I can't just die like this. I need to become stronger to survive. Most of these mass-produced games all have a happy ending. This world will also be saved by the main characters, but I need the strength to protect myself. I can't just leave it all to fate. So I need to quietly train myself. If I stand out too much, there's a chance I'll be called into the army to fight those evil bastards. That's something I need to avoid. Moreover, I also need to be careful when using the blessing of the void, because the spirit murmurs the blessing of the void. What are you calculating? Why am I picking up the sashimi knife? To have the burden weigh down on me again. The system interface appears. It provides information about the blessing of the void. If injured, it will be disabled. Physical level 2. The conditions of the sword are loosened. Mental level 3. The words and actions are more intimidating. Weapon level 1 is not yet unlocked. Synchronization rate 1.5%. The spirit looks at the system interface and exclaims, "That's quite impressive." But you stroke your chin, staring intently at the interface. It seems like there's a lot of new information. Physical mental weapons. The numbers here seem to represent levels. And what is this synchronization rate? You immediately get curious and click on the system interface. It immediately shows not enough conditions to activate synchronization. 1.5% can only be activated. Suddenly, the system interface turns red. Access to the system is restricted due to not meeting the conditions for use. You find it confusing, but it's not that important. Yama ponders, thinking of another mysterious question. The most important thing is to train physically. And I need a new weapon. I can't keep relying on the void for 30 seconds. The blessing is there. I also need to train with the sword, but it's not like the conditions of the blessing sword. Zoma looks at the phone in hand. Luckily, there will be a practical combat test next month, instead of the midterm exam. The reward for this training is the Murasame sword level B. If I can use it skillfully, then that's enough to graduate. Its standards are not like the blessing sword, so it won't be a main weapon. Yoma thinks deeply, realizing there's more to do than he thought. Suddenly, a voice interrupts his thoughts. You unconsciously glance toward the source of the voice and see a girl. That's my spot. Aben approaches her body glistening with sweat. She looks at Yoma, and he is taken aback. The atmosphere between them feels frozen. Yoma and Aben look at each other, making her feel uncomfortable. Aben says sharply, "Can you move over?" Startled, he blurts out, "Aroma," thinking, damn it, Aben looks like a dream. He shifts to the side, still staring at her without paying attention. Aben reminds him, "You don't need to go anywhere else, just move a bit." And he can only remain silent. The spirit glances at her, pondering, "But this spot, isn't this chair mine? Is it because of class discrimination? That's right. If I get involved with the main character, it will be complicated. So even if I don't like it, I should just keep my distance." On Aben's side, she gently wipes the beads of sweat on her skin, making Yama admire her silently, thinking, "Wow, she's stunning." Aben speaks up, "Isn't this the brightest place?" making him jump, his heart racing. Yama silently turns to look at her while she admires the stars in the sky. He thinks to himself, is this really Aben, the granddaughter of the sword saint that I know? That handsome main character has always been hard to approach. Aben turns to strike up a conversation with Yoma. "Is your weapon also a sword?" He still hasn't formed a clear thought and replies, Yeah. How did you know?" Aben seems shy, blushing as she says, "He told me." Her gaze lifts to meet his. "I heard that swordsmen have a completely different gaze." Yoma also feels a bit flushed, remaining silent. Suddenly, Aben points her sword toward him, smiling confidently. "Do you want to try holding it?" Yoma hesitates, looking at her. "It doesn't seem heavy at all." Your words make Aben show a hint of annoyance. Yoma, both of them fall silent while Yoma is deep in thought. Is she sulking? He looks at her awkwardly, finding it hard to adapt. Is this really the Aben that I know? Aben's face turned serious as she hesitated, looking straight into Yoma's eyes. "You know who I am, right?" Aben hesitated, then turned to ask, "You know who I am, don't you?" Yoma's expression immediately turned blank. He thought to himself, why is he asking that? It's not because he doubts me, is it? Of course not. Is there anyone in this school who doesn't know who Aben is? He started to sweat, but kept his composure, replying, "I know a little about you." Aben suddenly said, "I don't know you." This only made Yoma more confused about what he meant. She laughed and said, "Isn't it a bit strange? You know my name, but I don't know yours." Hearing this, he questioned, "Am I supposed to tell my name to a stranger? Just met, and you're so casual about it. Who knows, you could be a spy for the Demon Lord trying to infiltrate the Academy." Aben hesitated for a few seconds before continuing, "Or I can't think of any reason to be out this late. And yet you're still sitting here all alone. I have no idea how to respond." He muttered to himself, Did he notice? She, on the other hand, held up her long sword, pulling it up, seeing that a dull answer rose in his mind. There's no reason at all. So, Yama, why are you here? Aben casually replied, Isn't it obvious I'm here to practice and train? You said you're training too, she asked, probing. Yama remained calm, not breathing a word. That answer made her look at him with a judgmental gaze. Joma glanced at the hand raised by his opponent and noticed the wound. Aben saw him staring at it and quickly pulled his hand back, his cheeks flushed. He bit his lip and finally said, You really are diligent. She immediately replied, Of course I am. Aben seriously expressed his feelings. No one understands what it's like to have the blood of a noble running through their veins. They always have to wear a perfect facade, just showing a little weakness and everyone will trample over it. You know I'm not the top student this year. Right, honestly, this is the first time I've lost to someone. But you know what? Suddenly, the corners of her mouth curled up, as if satisfied with something. She looked up at the sky, her expression softening as she said, On the contrary, I feel a bit relieved. But on the other hand, I'm still curious about who defeated me. I want to know who they are. Joma froze for a moment, as if turned to stone. She decisively declared, I'll crush that person next time. This made him suddenly cough and turn to question her. Do you really have to go that far? Aben shouted, This is a matter of honor. I begged him to tell me more details, but he said that person isn't even in my class. They had the audacity to break the oath. How can I keep living with a second-rate label? Then she calmed down and laughed, saying, Oh my. Why am I saying all this to a stranger? Yoma also wondered why she was telling him this. Aben tilted her head and bluntly replied, Because you look weak. Then she continued rambling on about her family's motto. My clan is determined with the strong and compassionate with the weak. Everyone in my class is really good at what they do, so I don't have any friends at all. You think to yourself, that's why the main character feels so distant. Then she stretches and says, I think that's enough for tonight. You coldly reply, See ya. Aben stayed silent for a long time, then suddenly stood up frustrated and said loudly, So are you going to tell me your name or what? Before he could finish, Yama interrupted, clearly annoyed. She felt even more irritated. The next day, in a spacious and well-furnished classroom, you sat seriously in your seat. Life at the academy was more peaceful than you thought. Chloe quickly made friends with others and blended in with the class meanwhile. You had to busy yourself avoiding eye contact and running into him. If you did catch his eye, his new friends would look at you with cold stares. At that moment, someone behind Chloe snickered. Look at that special student, what a zombie, they thought. But you couldn't just ignore the disdainful looks. Moreover, Zombie wasn't the only special student in this class. There aren't many people like him, but they are very hesitant to interact with others. It must be because those other guys are so full of themselves. You glance to the side, thinking to yourself, if you think like that, it's a good thing Yama doesn't attend the higher classes, because right now is the time when the elite and advanced classes are fighting for power. You continued thinking back when you played, you thought of them as a bunch of clowns. So if Yama were in that class now, your head is going to explode. Yoma took something out. At least now I can eat and sleep soundly. What should I eat today? I remember media once said, a top student like you should have received this kind of treatment sooner. Sorry for making you wait. After that, he gently pulled out his lecturer's card for Joaquin. Academy moved, thinking, even if I saw the principal 3 times a day, it wouldn't be enough to express my gratitude. And so he looked up to the sky solemnly for a moment of silence. Thank you so much. A delighted smile spread across his face. Perfect. I've completed my duties as a student. Right, Yoma didn't really change the main plot that much, so I'll just live like this for the remaining 3 years. If things just keep going like this. Yoma laughed out loud. I can finally live the life I've always wanted in the future. Early that morning, in the crisp air of a grand hall, a professor's monotonous voice echoed, 700 years ago after the first great human-demon war. The hero Draqueen Baylor, realizing the need to foster the next generation of heroes, founded this academy with 7 principles. The old professor continued, This will be on the test, so make sure you study this information carefully. Yoma, however, was dozing off. His eyes glazed over, thinking to himself, This is all stuff I've already memorized. The founding hero Drakeen Baylor fought for 25 years against the commander of the First Legion and the Demon King Laken's right-hand man. He fought and won. However, when two extremely powerful beams of light collided like two giant mighty missiles, they created an explosion so massive it shook the heavens and the earth. Drakeen lost an arm, and he could no longer fight. Screams echoed everywhere. They could be heard from any direction. It was a bloody war with endless casualties. It seemed there was no clear winner. Fortunately, humanity and the demons reached a ceasefire agreement, and the hero Drakeen founded this academy. To nurture the next generation of talented individuals, the professor on the podium continued to lecture, and so the first human-demon war led to the signing of a non-aggression pact between the two sides, ushering in an era of 700 years of peace. Below, two students whispered to each other, "Do you think there'll be another war in our time? A war in the 21st century? What I'm still worried about, what to wear to the party tomorrow." Yoma's eyes were vacant as he said to himself, 700 years of peace. I'm the only one who knows about the first crack in that peace. Everyone has grown too used to this tranquility. He thought of Media's face again. Yoma really wanted to tell the principal what was happening, but he didn't know what the consequences would be. Suddenly, Yoma froze. Although she never hid her intention to resign as principal as soon as possible, she once said, "Should I just quit this job?" Media is the first person in the story who noticed something was wrong thanks to the poet lord, and she was also the first of the 7 great heroes to stand up and protect her students. I didn't play that stage very much. He sadly recalled the moment she had a huge hole gouged in her stomach. But he truly respected her. She was the first to die in the battle against the Demon King. When he played that scene, Zombie had frozen for a long time, his eyes wide, his voice full of shock. She died. Back in the present, he was still sitting silently. But deep down, he thought, I wish I didn't know. The professor instructed the students, "That's all for today. Remember to study hard for the test in 2 weeks." They replied, "Yes, sir. Yes." It's over. Then a noisy chatter erupted. Awesome. What? Really? What's going on? What is it? A curious student asked. What's happening? I'm going to. This made Yoma look over as well. What's up? A clear voice made him suddenly remember. Is that him? He looked at the date on his phone. May 5th. That's right. Today is the day. A crowd of curious students was packed in front of the main gate. He's not coming to our class, right? Of course not. He's obviously going to the elite class. Yoma tried to squeeze through to get a look. If he remembered correctly, the crowd was still shouting excitedly, "Oh my God! For real!" He was suddenly stunned. On May 5th, he enrolls the main character of this world. A handsome young man was walking in, and that was Leon Van Reinhardt. And the first crack in 700 years of peace would appear. Yoma looked at Leon and sighed to himself. What a pain in the ass. His face is so damn annoying. As I said, all the women in this game will fall in love with him. He grimaced, continuing his thought. If this were an adult game, that might have been fine. Leon probably would have died before he even fought the Demon King. Besides all the girls who fall for him, Rachel Zamura, the Holy Pope's granddaughter, Saki Ryoho, the Holy Archer's daughter, Aben Vonibelung, the Sword Emperor's granddaughter. All the main characters are impressed by him. The more I think about it, the more annoying it gets. Damn it. But the protagonist of Miracle Blessing M. Leon Van Reinhardt, will be one of the first to go through the rehearsal for the next 3 years. He gritted his teeth in frustration. Rehearsal is putting it mildly. I refuse to go through that a second time. It's no different from being conscripted into the army. By the way, even Drakeen could only seal away one of them. If that's a Legion commander, then how powerful is the Demon King? No way. Could this be one of those crazy stories where even the main character loses? Leon was smiling at a classmate when he suddenly felt a pair of eyes staring right at him. He immediately turned and looked straight to where Yama was standing. He offered a gentle, friendly smile, but it made Yama freeze for a moment. Watching them leave, he thought to himself, right, he was talking about the miracle of the blessing. The main character will figure it out on his own. He rubbed his chin, thinking to himself, his face is just so trustworthy. I don't even know when I got convinced. Suddenly, someone called out to him. The voice caught his attention, and he quickly turned around. That evening at the training hall, Yama gripped a wooden log, swinging it up and down. After a moment, he let out a breath. Just as I thought. If you don't meet the standards, the blessing will be enforced. He told himself he had to reach a certain level of proficiency. In swordsmanship, he recalled that morning when Chloe had appeared and timidly asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Yoma forced a smile, thinking, I almost lost my head there. That's what he wanted to say. But we still have to be classmates for a few more years. Then he said out loud, "It's nothing." She asked awkwardly, "Really?" He replied, "Yeah," thinking, I have to keep the peace around here. No need to make unnecessary enemies. Chloe sighed in relief. Thank goodness. He wondered to himself, what is her real personality like anyway? Even when she wasn't in her right mind, she could still wield a sword, a sorrowful blade, a sword that seemed to be crying out for help for some reason. But it was still overflowing with killing intent. If she were actually trying to kill someone, she'd probably be even more dangerous than the Mao brothers. She stammered, Yoma, if it's okay with you, could I treat you to dinner?" Then blushing, she added, "I just want to repay you. Of course I'm not as good at cooking as you are." Yama froze, his mind filled with ominous thoughts. A surprise dinner. He saw her sparkling, expectant eyes. But to him, it was a rather alarming gaze. Refusing would be awkward, but if he agreed, he might just end up in the morgue tomorrow. Suddenly he realized something. That's it. Then he spoke up. "Chloe, this might sound a bit weird, but instead of dinner, could you help me with something?" She wondered. "Help you?" He replied, "I can't think of anyone else I could ask." Chloe's cheeks immediately flushed red. "What is it?" Yama rubbed the back of his head and answered sheepishly, "Could you teach me swordsmanship?" Now gripping his sword, he thought, well, I needed someone to teach me swordsmanship anyway. This is a good excuse. Chloe is terrifyingly strong. From that day on, the only thing Yama looked at before going to sleep was, "You must survive." It seemed to have some effect. Just then Chloe called out, "Yama, when did you get here? I've been waiting over there." He calmly replied, "Chloe, I just arrived. And you?" She said excitedly, "Me too, I just got here." Yama, suspicious, asked, "At what time?" She replied, 6:30. A bead of sweat ran down his face as he said, "We agreed to meet at 8 o'clock, didn't we?" Chloe rubbed her head and giggled. Yoma's expression turned serious again. "That's right." But when she noticed him staring at her, she looked around and asked, "Is something wrong?" He shook his head, saying, "No, no, no." Yoma hadn't noticed, since she always wears her uniform, but now he could see her abs and muscles. Now I get why she's so strong. Still, it's kinda cute, Yoma thought with a strained smile. I should cherish this. He then held the wooden stick forward. "Here, take it." Chloe accepted it, then asked with a puzzled look, "I thought we were going to use real swords." He panicked internally. Did she hear me wrong? Who in their right mind trains with real swords? This isn't a life or death battle. He explained awkwardly, It's just practice, practice. We should use wooden swords to avoid getting injured." She rubbed her head and let out a chuckle of realization. Then she bowed her head, her face darkening, but the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. "How kind of you." It sent shivers down his spine. She held the stick, her eyes glazing over for a second. Then with a light swing, she stirred up a powerful gust of wind that nearly made him wet himself. Just how strong is she? It sounded like the very air was being torn apart. Yama immediately got on his guard. There's a lot I need to be careful about here. Finally, the blessing is granted. System activated. Sword God's blessing nullified upon injury. Physical level 2 years. Sword parameters have been loosened. Mental level BA actions are indecisive. Weapon level 1 conditions not met. Synchronization rate 2%. Can only be activated when the sword is smaller than 32 plus 3 centimeters. And has a length shorter than 6 plus 2 centimeters. He thought to himself, let me just confirm this. Okay, the sword's parameters seem okay, and my physical growth is stable, but are blessings usually like this? Blessings usually level up your skills, but are there any additional effects? I don't really remember much about this. I'm just standing here like a zombie lost in thought. But what exactly are the conditions? Chloe called out hesitantly, "Hey." She wondered, is something wrong? He just realized he'd been ignoring her. "Sorry," he said, then thought to himself, it seems only I can see this system window. I must look like a complete idiot just spacing out. Yama forced a smile and said, "Since this is our first session, please go easy on me, okay?" She replied confidently, "All right." He then picked up a wooden staff himself. With a determined gaze, he announced, "Well then, shall we begin?" Suddenly, everything went quiet. His face grew serious. In his past life, Yama had always been a realist, living by the motto of only trusting what he could see. To become a master in any field, sacrifices are necessary. Blood and sweat are not enough. You must be willing to completely reshape your own body. The reason Yama adapted so quickly to this academy was a result of the lessons he learned when he was young. At that moment, Chloe's entire body began to glow red with magic. She closed her eyes to focus her hands sweating and her stance awkward. Then she slowly cracked her eyes open. But the essence of swordsmanship is precision. She charged like a whirlwind, her staff burning brightly with mana. He was startled but still just stood there like an idiot waiting. Suddenly, the staff flashed towards him like lightning, making him wince. So fast, she struck directly at him, the staff grazing past his face. A few more millimeters and it would have been all over for him. Yoma trembled. "My God, I told you to go easy." Chloe dropped the staff, spun around, grabbed it with her other hand, and charged forward again. A loud, heavy impact rang out. With a single swing, she knocked his arm high up into the air. Yoma's whole body shook from the impact. "So heavy." He tried to regain his composure, but he'd managed to block it. "I'll just slam down like this." Just as he had that thought, when he looked up, Chloe was already high in the air. Yoma gritted his teeth. "Damn it, she's even faster now. Was that last move just a feint?" As she slashed down, he braced himself to block the incredible power. The two staffs slammed into each other with a loud crack. Yoma was forced back a step. She attacked him again and again. In front of him, Chloe relentlessly changed her moves, her stance, and her position, looking for an opening. He gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. Each one of her blows felt like a lightning strike. If one of these connects, it's over. Yoma was nearing his limit. There was no chance to counterattack. Suddenly, under the immense pressure, the staff in his hand snapped in two. Chloe stammered, I'm sorry, I was trying to go easy on you. But I broke it anyway." Her wide eyes grew even wider as she called out his name softly, "Yama." Then she gasped in shock, her pupils shrinking as she saw him standing in the middle of a swirling blue aura of mana. System messages flashed one after another. Weapon in use does not meet conditions. Weapon damaged. Error detected. Initiating forced activation. Self-adjustment protocol. Humanity decreasing. Sword God's blessing activated. A terrifying light blazed in his eyes. Feeling the immense killing intent, Chloe instantly jumped back. The system announced, "Weapon activation conditions met. Warning, weapon malfunction." Dazed and wary, she stared straight at Yama. Forced self-adjustment initiated. He stood motionless as a current of mana coursed through him. His humanity began to fade. His eyes widened, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. Sword God's blessing. Yama's first manifestation. He found himself standing in a stark white room. "Yama, where am I?" Looking around, he saw cooking utensils. "Yama, a kitchen was all of that just a dream?" A fish was on the cutting board. "Yama, that's right, I was filleting a fish." "Yama, time to get back to it." A selection of sharp knives appeared. "Yoma, it's been such a long time. Should I use a chef's knife?" A red system window popped up. "This item cannot be selected." Yama, what, I can't choose it." "Yoma, fine, I'll choose this knife then." Again the message appeared. "This item cannot be selected." "Yoma, I can't, not this one either." Voice, "Don't worry about that." Voice, "Just keep doing what you're doing." "Yama, then the only one left is the sashimi knife." Voice, "Correct. Just pick that one." "Yama, but still, holding this sashimi knife really hurts my hand." He gripped the knife tightly. Voice, "Does it still hurt now?" "Yama, that's weird. I don't feel any pain." "Yama, on the contrary, it feels exhilarating." Voice, "Yes, that's it exactly. Keep going. Just leave it to me." An ethereal white hand appeared. It used red threads to control his movements. Yama, "All right. Yama, today I will create a masterpiece." Heat activation. A column of light shot down from above and into Yama. His expression was grim, his eyes filled with bloodlust. Chloe, stunned, called out to him, "Yama, are you all right, Yama?" Her words had no effect on him at all. His whole body swayed from side to side, then like a bolt of lightning, he shot across the space. He lunged forward without a second thought. In just a flash, Yoma was right in front of Chloe. Their two staffs clashed violently once more as she struggled to defend against his attack. But the pressure was too much for her legs, and she lost her balance. Without a moment's hesitation, he sent her flying with a slash. She was thrown a great distance backward. Her body slammed straight into the wall behind her. Chloe coughed up blood, gritting her teeth as she thought, "He's like a completely different person from before." Yoma showed her no mercy, lunging at her again with a downward slash. Luckily, Chloe managed to dodge just in time, saving her own life. His eyes were glowing with no sign of awareness within them. She used her staff to prop herself up, thinking about how that last attack sent her flying. Chloe clutched her chest, struggling to rise. It hurt so much to move. What happened to Yoma? She didn't understand what was happening. She knew she had to stop this fight right now. Chloe struggled to speak. Yoma, I need to stop the match." But it was as if he couldn't hear a word she said anymore. The only thing in his mind now was the fight. He lunged at her, and seeing this, she felt a wave of despair. "I'm not going to make it!" Chloe cried out, "Yoma, snap out of it! Yoma!" He swung his fist as she screamed at the top of her lungs. "Yoma!" At that moment, something strange stirred in his subconscious. "Yoma, what's wrong? The fish on the cutting board just keeps flopping around. Yoma, why do you keep missing? I've never seen a fish like this before." It dodged again. That was fast. Yoma thought, "This is so annoying. I have to finish this quickly." But it sounds like it's talking. Is Yoma just imagining things? He listened to the sound the fish was making and mumbled along, "Yoma, Yoma." The knife in his hand reflected his own image. "Yoma, Yoma. Yes, that's right. That's me." The voice calling Yoma helped pull him back to himself, no longer controlled by the red threads. His eyes glanced down at the cutting board, and then that voice rang out again. "Yoma." It was Chloe trying to wake him. "Yoma, snap out of it." He recognized her now. A bright light was slowly consuming his subconscious, and all that remained was a single sound calling Yoma back to reality. The staff fell from his hand, embedding itself in the wall behind him. The space fell silent. The two of them stood motionless in front of each other. He had realized who he was, and she was so frightened she was crying. She slowly opened her eyes to assess the situation. Yoma was back to normal. He put one arm around her waist and said, "Let's stop here for today, okay?" His action made her blush, beet red. She thought to herself, "He's so gentle." Then she stammered, Are you okay?" Yoma just smiled, turned, and prepared to leave. "Thanks for helping me practice. I'll be heading out now." And just like that, he walked off, leaving Chloe standing there, stunned. That night, she walked alone, deep in thought. Ever since the placement test, she knew Yoma's skills were more than just raw power. They carried a strange feeling with them. It wasn't just skill, it was instinct. She recalled the fight from earlier. Even without using her blessing, she was still no match for him. And that too, the wooden sword snapping in half. But as she was lost in her thoughts, she knew he was strong, but still. A figure suddenly appeared and said, "Looks like you were enjoying yourself." Hearing that voice, she frowned in annoyance. It was Nox Aditora, a second year. He called her name Chloe. She hesitated. "Brother," Nox said sarcastically, "is fraternizing with lowlifes all you've been doing since you joined the academy?" Chloe said angrily, "Don't you dare talk about Yoma like that." He questioned, "So that punk's name is Yoma, huh? If you keep trying to associate with that sort of person, the Aditora family will eliminate him." Hearing that, her eyes flashed with killing intent as she stared him down. Then she closed her eyes, bowed her head, turned her back decisively, and answered bluntly. Even if the entire Aditora family came after him, they wouldn't be able to do a single thing to Yoma. Nox fell silent at her words, watching her retreating figure before quietly murmuring, "Yoma." Meanwhile, he was still lost in a tangled mess of thoughts of his own after the incident that just occurred. Yoma needed to make one thing clear. The power he'd been given wasn't a blessing or some kind of gift. It was more like a curse. To avoid relying on the sword god's blessing, Yoma needed to find new equipment. But that power, it seemed to scorn his every effort. It clung to him, wanting to completely take over his body. Yoma didn't feel any pain. No, Not only did he not feel pain, but he even took some pleasure in the ceaseless feeling of being debilitated. He was like a puppet on strings, lying still, allowing that curse to manipulate him. And the sweet whispers in his ear. Yoma was losing all awareness. Cut more, deeper, destroy even more. He sank into the red threads, letting them lead him wherever they pleased. He had completely surrendered himself to that thing. He remembered that moment just now. Chloe's scream laced with desperation, the name that made him snap back to his senses. Her tearful voice calling, Yoma! All the shattered pieces of his world came back together, and so Yoma threw away the sword that had felt as if it were fused to his very flesh. Yoma felt that if he didn't throw it away immediately, he would lose himself forever. Right now, he was just an Iander who wanted to kill him, Chloe, the girl who brought him back to his senses. Even though he was the one who broke the sword and caused this problem, and despite his anger, Yoma still felt grateful. So, he decided to let it all go. Even so, Yoma still had to get out of there quickly to keep it from acting up again. But could he really avoid this problem for the rest of his life? The blessing of the sword. God, a talent that was practically a curse, one that had to be paid for with a person's lifespan. Yoma, with his withered body and lifeless eyes, that was the talent he had to bear. Like an alien living in this world. In the large building, lightning streaked across the night sky. Yoma thought to himself that he didn't have any grand ambitions here. At that moment, he dragged his body up each step of the staircase, his eyes glazed over and full of exhaustion. Yoma just wanted to live a normal life. He thought he could handle any small incidents. If it happened, suddenly there were hands prying open a bizarre wide mouth. But it was only then that Yoma realized. They lunged down from there, wanting to crush his body. There was something inside of Yoma, something that was devouring his sanity. This was no blessing. It was a curse that wanted to swallow Yoma whole. 3 days later, class was in session in the large hall. A student with a beaming smile spoke up. Something crazy happened yesterday. I'll show you in a bit. Chloe replied, Oh, really? I'll check it out later. She suddenly fell silent, her eyes filled with an unspoken emotion. It turned out she was looking at an empty seat below, which belonged to Yoma. Chloe pondered, only now realizing she didn't even have his contact information. Why hadn't she asked before? Chloe had even gone to his dorm room, but the only thing that answered her knock was a cry of pain. Chloe was afraid he would hate her if she broke the door down, so she could only leave. Chloe frowned sadly. She liked watching him from afar when he was resting his chin on his hand, lost in thought. Chloe was afraid he would think she was a nuisance, so she was careful not to start a conversation with him. At first, Chloe thought she was drawn to him because he had risked his life to save her, but she confessed her true feelings to herself. Maybe that was just an excuse. She missed him. The next day at the grand and spacious school, someone's voice yelled out, Settle down. Wanbin stood on the podium, irritated, and growled, All of you quiet down. How long have you been students and you're still acting like a marketplace? Because it's raining today, we'll be studying in the classroom instead of training. It seems Yoma isn't in school today either, he thought with a serious expression. There must be a reason. So he would wait patiently, like a true teacher. A while later, Wanbin announced, Let's begin class. The whole class responded in unison, Yes, sir. Suddenly, a loud noise greatly annoyed Wanbin. Who dares interrupt my class? Suddenly, his eyes widened as he looked up. A figure was descending from there, their footsteps echoing on the stairs. It was Yoma. His eyes were icy, and his expression was stoic. He showed no emotion whatsoever, simply walking down calmly. Seeing him, Chloe shot to her feet and called out, Yoma! In a slow, concise voice, he said, I'm sorry for being late, sir. Seeing this, even Wanbin was wary, stammering, all right. Sit down. The students who witnessed this began to whisper among themselves. Isn't he one of the special admission students? Does he always look like that? He looks more handsome. Now that you mention it. From the moment Yoma appeared, the room fell silent. He sat quietly in his seat, his eyes still dark and frighteningly cold. The class ended. The students filed out for their break. Let's go eat. I'm starving. Oh, really? Chloe approached him, then hesitantly calling his name, Yoma. He replied, Chloe. She asked with concern, What happened? He said, It's nothing. Chloe continued, It's been a while since you came to class, so I thought something must have happened to you. Could it have been because of that duel? Yoma was silent for a few seconds, then turned and gave a faint, reassuring smile. I was just a little sick, that's all. Thank you for worrying about me. She seemed flustered, her eyes widening and her cheeks turning red. Then she said shyly, Is that so? What a relief. He thought to himself, just as I figured, she won't believe me. Yoma recalled how for the past 3 days he had struggled enduring torturous symptoms until he was completely exhausted. Yoma couldn't leave his room to eat anything. He had to lie flat on his bed, praying for this terrible thing to end soon. The pain Yoma had to endure was far greater than in the past. That was the price for using that broken sword. That wasn't the only thing that happened. When he looked in the mirror, his appearance was the same, but his face had become gaunt. Even his hair had turned white. Yoma was utterly horrified by this despair. This is divine punishment. Back in the present, Chloe looked at Yoma, who had his head bowed, and thought to herself, He looks like he feels guilty, which makes sense. He saw me like that back at the training grounds after all. I have to change the subject. Suddenly, he spoke up. Hey, about that dinner you mentioned before. Would today be okay, model? She froze for a few seconds, then her cheeks flushed with excitement. What really dinner? He continued. But this time, I want to eat something you've cooked. Chloe was over the moon. She jumped up and down excitedly. Of course you can. I'll do my absolute best. I'm so happy. Yoma smiled softly, thinking, she must really like that. Chloe excitedly asked, Yoma today, I'll make anything you want to eat. What do you want? He replied, It's been a while since I've had fish. Last time I ate in your room, I threw everything up. No, that's not it. It was too expensive, so I didn't. Suddenly, a flash of killing intent shot past, making Yoma flinch and turn around. But there was only a potted plant there. What the hell was that? Then he turned towards the main door. Seeing this, Chloe also peeked over curiously to see what was going on. It turned out the person standing there was Nox. His eyes were stark white, revealing a horrifying expression. She gasped when she saw it. Yoma asked, Do you know him? The room fell silent once more. He stepped forward to find the answer himself. As their eyes met, Yoma said bluntly, If you have something to say, then say it. Stop staring. Nox's eyes glowed a fiery red. Yoma wondered to himself, what's wrong with his eyes? Just then, Chloe rushed up to stand between them, shouting, Yoma, don't pay any attention to this person. Nox, no, didn't I tell you not to come? Why are you here? Hearing this, he glanced to the side and thought, so that's how it is. Her voice is sharp, but there's a hint of hesitation. No, she's trembling, that's it. Nox said coldly, He's nothing. Are you really breaking the rules of House Auditor for his sake? Chloe yelled angrily, Auditor or whatever else. It has nothing to do with me anymore. He replied, We're blood relatives, and you dare speak like that. Once you're born an auditor, you're always an auditor. Yoma's face grew serious. The little sister sounds like she's rebelling. And the big brother sounds like he's in some historical drama. Can't you just lower your voice? Nox growled, ordering, Get rid of this thing and come home now. Chloe bit her lips so hard it bled. Don't. She then screamed, Don't talk about Yoma like that. But he just thought, can't they just talk things out calmly? Everyone else has gone to eat. If they hadn't, this would be chaos. He's used to this sort of thing. Wait a minute. Auditor. Yoma understood. He just remembered, specializing in infiltration and assassination. They were the shadowy figures who appeared in the middle of the game. They're weaker than the other hero families, but in terms of assassination, they are unrivaled. All members of the Auditor family are ridiculously strong because they are forced through harsh training that turns them into the most ruthless killing machines. Growing up, Chloe was born into House Auditor. Yoma rubbed his chin and continued his thought. Damn it. If that's the case between what's normal and what's not, isn't that expression of hers actually the more normal one, an emotionless face while killing someone? An expression that shows she's used to it. He was certain that the auditors are hunting down enemies to consolidate their position. If things got urgent, Yoma wouldn't hesitate to kill either. That seemed logical, he thought, as he glanced at the trembling Chloe. He guessed that Chloe probably wanted to live a normal life. However, like the Sword of Blessing, Chloe grew up in the environment of House Auditor since she was a child, so that was definitely impossible. She was destined to become a cold-blooded assassin. Unfortunately, he wasn't a hero. Even if he wanted to be, he couldn't. Although it was true that, suddenly a smirk played on Yoma's lips as he muttered, What the hell am I doing? Then he thought, I can't save the whole world, but Saving one person, one girl. I can probably do that, can't I? He stepped forward. I'll talk to him. Yoma thought again. I have to admit this power is definitely a curse, but it won't let me taste defeat. System notification. The Lord will bless you. Yoma asked, Your name's Nox, right? He didn't answer, only nodding. Yoma thought to himself, no matter how hard I try to escape the sword god's blessing, I'll never succeed. In an anime, they'd say something like, you can run, but you can't hide. That's right. Yoma moved forward decisively. If you're not gonna run, then I'll charge right at you. I'm Yoma. My name is a combination of Yo for sword and Ma for demon, and I'm a knife user. He moved outside, making sure to say, Follow me. I'm gonna chop you into pieces. In Wanbin's office, he was sitting in thoughtful silence. He remembered the incident from before and was sure of it. Something has definitely happened to Yoma. His face was completely expressionless. Teaching assistant Yoma suddenly pushed the door open. Senior, is something wrong? You're about to go completely bald. Wanbin frowned. Don't make jokes about me going bald. She burst out laughing. Sorry. Suddenly the phone rang. He picked it up. This is Lee Wanbin, instructor for the Tiger class. What is it? Over here. Teaching assistant Yoma was still amused, thinking to herself, so he was already going bald from the start, huh? How cute. He was suddenly startled. A subspace, why now? Which student even requested this? The announcer on the call stated that Yoma had requested Nox Auditor as his opponent. Wanbin gasped in shock. What the? The door slowly creaked open. High above, a timer for the match was displayed. Inside, Yoma sat lost in a jumble of thoughts. 15 minutes until the subspace match. He thought the procedure would be complicated, but it turned out to be simple. He remembered what media once said, if you're really going to do this, please be careful. He thought to himself, well, this is outside the scope of reality anyway, so I probably won't get physically injured, but a mental blow seems unavoidable. Yoma mumbled softly, whatever. As long as I win, that's all that matters. The sound of a noisy crowd echoed into the waiting room. Everyone knows a fight is fun to watch, but he never expected the reaction to be this intense. Yoma let out a long sigh. He was a strange one too. Not long ago, he was trying to avoid attention, and now, this was just pointless. Suddenly he realized. Chloe was sobbing beside him. He broke out in a cold sweat, realizing she must think this was her fault. He tried to reassure her. Chloe, hey, it's not your fault. Don't worry. Yoma held up the kitchen knife and said excitedly, Chloe even lent me a weapon. I'll probably be fine. The air suddenly fell silent. She spoke up. He's extremely strong. He turned to her and said, Chloe's strong too. She raised her voice excitedly. My brother is a genius. He has a talent that's one of a kind in the history of the Auditor family. No one can compare to him in the use of hidden weapons. At 54, he was already called the pinnacle of the shadow arts. Yoma thought to himself, the pinnacle of the shadow arts. What's with these two? Who the hell came up with that name? He looked at the knife in his right hand. Now that he thought about it, it was always like this. No matter how hard he tried to run away in the end, he always had to choose this path. His destiny was to spend his entire life holding a sword. That old man probably never expected it either. In this second life, that he'd be messing around with a sashimi knife. Just then, an announcement rang out. We will now begin the subspace pairing. All related students, please proceed to the training grounds. Yoma shot to his feet and said, I'm heading out. Behind him, Chloe just let out a soft, She was silent, her expression incredibly conflicted. He glanced back over his shoulder and called out, Chloe! She looked up puzzled. He spoke gently. There are many geniuses in this world, he said, his hand gripping the sharp knife tightly. But in the end, she listened stunned. Yoma waved a confident smile playing on his lips as he said, the winner will still be me. The bright doorway in the distance grew larger from his perspective, and in an instant, it was right before him. He shielded his eyes from the blinding light. In front of Yoma was an entire stadium packed with people. They were screaming with excitement. I believed in you, special admission student. You can do it. Damn, I've actually been looking forward to this fight for a long time. He gave a forced smile. This is like being an ancient Roman gladiator, huh? I never expected so many people. Suddenly, his eyes were drawn to a high section of the stands. Yoma was a little surprised. The Saint class is here too. Up there were Saki, Rachel, Leon, and Aben. She frowned, looking down below. He stood silently on the arena floor, thinking to himself, got nothing better to do. So tense. Suddenly, a voice rang out, making him turn his attention. It was Nox with those same deathly eyes. You commoner trash, are you mocking me? You filth, don't you know the difference between being brave and being arrogant? How dare you use such a cheap weapon? An incredibly powerful killing intent washed over him, threatening to swallow him whole. Yoma frowned. What insane killing intent, this guy's crazy. He laughed and said sarcastically, a true master doesn't blame his equipment. The other guy cursed in frustration. You bastard. Then he narrowed his eyes and said, first, I'm going to rip that insolent tongue of yours out. With that, he drew a longsword pulsing with mana. A smirk formed on Yoma's lips. Now look at that, not bad. That's a rank S Hong Lun blade, and he has 2 of them. Not only that, they're enchanted with one of the highest grade presence-concealing protections from the masterpiece Grace of the Black Fruit. Yoma thought, I can feel that the killing intent from before has been suppressed. Faced with that invisible threat, he still didn't show the slightest hint of fear. An S-rank weapon sounds ridiculous, but this side is being serious too. Meanwhile, in his hand was just a sashimi knife, a daiso, a fruit paring knife. Chloe couldn't even identify its rank. The two stood facing each other as the announcer's voice rang out. Activating the barrier now. The two locked eyes like perfectly matched rivals, sharp and terrifying. As soon as the words subspace were mentioned, the 4 from the Saint class and Chloe all watched with rapt curiosity. Nox summoned it. Hero's Grace. As soon as the word protect was uttered, both of them instantly shot forward like lightning. The distance between them closed significantly. The system now displayed a notification. Unification Blessing has been activated. Sword God's Blessing has been activated. Yoma gripped his knife tightly and charged forward. Divine Grace, protect me. The students watching the match frowned in confusion. What was that? Did you see it? He grimaced. Gradually, everyone started complaining, annoyed. I can't see a thing. What is this, a smokescreen? They're too fast. This isn't a fight between amateurs, is it? The two clashed, fighting at a speed like lightning that made it difficult for anyone to follow. Someone that's in the stands burst out laughing. Damn, they're fast, aren't they? This is interesting. Aben, however, looked extremely displeased. That weak-looking guy. How can they fight like that? Down below, Yoma parried Nox's attack with a single slash. Nox attacked frantically, but Yoma blocked every single one. Nox tightened his grip and slashed straight down at the ground, then unleashed countless lightning-fast moves. 2 diagonal scars were clearly visible on the ground where he struck. He thought, annoyed, let's see if you can dodge this one, you bastard. Then he dashed forward, a brilliant surge of magical energy appearing. Nox moved in a diagonal 3-step pattern, leaving Yoma wide-eyed in utter shock as countless magical spikes erupted from the ground. They surrounded him. Now in front of Yoma were countless illusions of Nox. And then, Yoma's whole body turned into a projection and vanished into space, startling Nox. In just an instant, he had escaped the formation. Nox was stunned. He dodged that too. Yoma's eyes were cold as he looked back as if at a clown. The students who didn't understand what was happening said, I can sort of see what's going on. Barely. But it looks like the second-year student has the upper hand, right? The first year is just running away. As expected of a second year, that 1 year of experience is no joke. But Aben understood the situation. Anyone who can't see it would think the second year is launching a barrage of attacks. But that guy dodged every single one. It seems like he doesn't want to fight. Nox furiously ground his teeth. Just as Chloe said, he's no pushover. I even used the Black Crow's boon to make sure. I could destroy him, and yet he still dodges so easily. He growled, damn it. Watching Yoma approach, he thought, he's too focused on speed. Now that I've seen his true strength, I need to be more careful. I have to aim for a powerful strike that can sweep across a wide area. The more he looked, the angrier he got. How dare he use that cheap kitchen knife? Suddenly, Yoma dropped his weapon, making Nox wonder internally. He dropped his weapon in the middle of a fight. What trick is this guy trying to pull? Yoma used both hands to grip the handle tightly. Then he assumed a fighting stance. The battle grew as tense as a drawn bowstring. Yoma's eyes were sharp, but Nox was furious, thinking, this damn bastard. How dare he use that stance to mock me? Then he cursed, "You rootless commoner! How dare you make a fool of me?" Nox gripped his sword with one hand, killing intent once again radiating in all directions. He now looked no different from a demon from hell. "I'll kill you in a single blow." Nox's eyes glowed red, his crimson scimitar dripping with blood at that very moment. Yoma lunged forward like a flash of lightning across the sky, while the other was still saying, "What luck?" But he had already executed his own move, paying no mind whatsoever to those meaningless words. Yoma's mind was flooded with tangled words. As for him, he just wanted to live in peace. Don't draw attention, just follow the main plot. This was the worst kind of curse. It always chased him trying to control his body, but something inside him was trying to devour it instead. But what was he supposed to do if he couldn't run away? By the grace of my guardian spirit, I'll just cut everything down. At that moment, one of Nox's arms was severed from his body. Even Nox himself was stunned into a daze. He didn't see a thing. Yoma was like a flash of lightning, moving so fast that no one could possibly keep up. His whole body glowed brightly, his hand gripping the knife tightly. The students watching the match were silent and wide-eyed. Leon was also speechless. On the stage, the two stood motionless. Yoma's eyes were filled with red veins. Whether it's a blessing or a curse, I'll accept it all. Goodbye to my peaceful future. An arm lay on the ground. A look of turmoil was still on Nox's face. Streaks of light flashed by in an instant. All he could see was the masked Nox auditor. It covered his mouth and nose. He was trying to brace himself to endure it. His eyes widened bloodshot, and then a flash of light passed through his neck, severing his head from his body. Only a line of text appeared. Activating spatial barrier. Before them was an arena where a fierce battle was taking place. The people in the stands raised their eyes. They frowned, looking anxious as they stared intently down. On the arena floor, Nox Auditor seemed to be collapsing from exhaustion. On the other side was a handsome young man named Yoma. He was slowly sheathing his knife. As soon as he finished, a flash of light appeared. Over on the side, Aben and Jacob stared with wide eyes. Standing in the middle of the smoky arena, he looked majestic and imposing, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his knife. Just then an announcement rang out again. Subspace battle concluded. He looked up and scratched his ear. He thought, I wonder if my reaction was natural this time. It's too late to turn back now. Suddenly his gaze turned ice cold. He stared intently at something. He thought, this is a knife for gutting fish. It turned out the thing he was staring at was his knife, a blade with a pattern near the handle that seemed to shift in and out of view. Behind that, a thought kept surfacing. The act of cutting someone always gives me an indescribable feeling of discomfort. He glanced back at the collapsed and trembling auditor. He figured the only comfort now was that both brothers, Mao and Nox, were still in the subspace. The subspace's function was very clear. Right now, Nox's eyes were wide with terror, his body trembling uncontrollably, sweat pouring down like rain onto the floor. A voice called out, Nox. He tilted his head, thinking, he's strong, just like Chloe said. It feels like he has a lot of prior combat experience. But deep in his eyes there was a hint of worry. Yoma concluded, however, if I show off my strength like that, everyone will want to avoid me. I saw everything, but I guess you could say that was his good fortune. A loud voice boomed from the arena's speakers. Victory goes to the first-year Yoma class. A board lit up showing the winner and the defeat time just 26 seconds. The name Yoma rang out. The buzz of discussion from the crowd swelled. That's the special student from the first year. He even defeated 5 two-star Yamas amidst all that praise. He could only stand there and think, are they really advertising me everywhere? Then he looked down and let out a small, smug smile. There's nothing I can do about it now. This is the path I chose after all. And so he slowly walked off the stage. I just have to risk it all and follow this path. In the school hallway, voices grew louder. Is that guy from Auditor? You mean the match yesterday? No wonder that dude is so strong. These two chatted with great enthusiasm. That's what I'm saying. But if he's that strong, how did he lose his weapon? They said, sitting in the middle of class. Those two were talking so loudly that even people outside could hear them. Over on this side, a girl named Aben rested her chin on her hand, gazing into the distance and thinking, his name is Yoma, huh? She stared blankly out the window. In her mind, thoughts kept swirling. Everywhere I go, I hear his name. It's a little hard to believe. But then she remembered the fight between Yoma and Nox. He sliced off his sword arm, sending it falling straight to the ground as blood gushed everywhere. It seemed she was realizing something. Her eyes widened as she realized it. From that moment on, her pupils constricted. She thought, I can't see clearly anymore. Slashes flashed before her eyes as if she were imagining it all again. She found his swordsmanship utterly unbelievable. The image of Yoma's 2 knives crossing flashed through her mind. And besides, he fought with 2 kitchen knives. She thought it through carefully. As the Emperor's granddaughter, I'm extremely confident when it comes to the sword. I was so blind. How can mere knives be that powerful? Suddenly, an idea flashed through her mind, startling her and making her gasp. Abin remembered talking with him then. The 2 of them were sitting on a long wooden bench. She had told herself, but I'm pretty curious. Who's the person that beat me to become valedictorian? If I meet him again, I'll definitely take him down. She turned to the person next to her, who looked rather frail, and said, my family's motto is to be strict with the strong and merciful with the weak. I don't even know who this year's valedictorian is. All of a sudden, she realized. Don't tell me. He's the valedictorian. Furious, she slammed her hand on the desk. Her face turned bright red, and her body trembled uncontrollably. Those thoughts kept racing through her head. It was definitely infuriating back then, but he's so much stronger than me. Yoma, what was he thinking, looking at me like that? What could he have been thinking? Driven by these indignant thoughts, Aben slammed her hand on the desk and yelled, what in the world was he thinking? This startled Jay-Cho, who was sleeping next to her, awake. Confused about what was happening, she asked, What's going on? Realizing she'd made a scene, Aben turned and said, sorry, Jay-Cho, it's nothing serious. Jay-Cho replied skeptically. Then she continued, really? Aben just answered, yeah, I haven't gotten any exercise these past few days, so my head's a little fuzzy. She looked suspicious. What's this? You're clearly hiding something. This made her involuntarily glance over and ask back, what are you talking about? The girl pleaded, come on, tell me. Rachel asked in a gentle tone, are you hungry? She replied coldly, no. Rachel kept on asking, or did you forget something somewhere again? Aben answered, no. She asked again, a toilet hook. Aben snapped back curtly, I told you that's not it. Suddenly she blurted out, are you thinking about a boy? This must have hit a nerve because it made Aben jump so hard her whole body shook. Aben's face slowly turned red while Jay-Cho, seemingly realizing she was right, grinned from ear to ear. Then she yelled out, Pff, seriously, Lady Aben has a girly side after all. I thought you didn't know the first thing about love. Seeing Jay-Cho's over-the-top reaction, Aben could only reply awkwardly, It's really not that. Jay-Cho's laughter rang out. Is that so? Then she asked directly, so who's the handsome guy? Aben glanced at her with shy eyes and didn't answer. The girl guessed to herself, well, if he managed to steal Aben's heart, he can't be an idiot. Let's see. Her voice rang out, it's Leon, isn't it? A boy with striking blue eyes and blonde hair appeared. She had to admit he really is handsome, but looking at Aben's face, from her eyes, her lips, and her whole expression, it screamed, no. Sensing this, Vichol thought, that's strange, she doesn't seem to like Leon. Then she said, okay then, and asked again, is it that special student from yesterday? An image of Yoma with his emotionless face appeared. The black-haired guy, she reminded Aben. This seemed to be exactly what Aben was thinking. She quickly turned away, slightly startled. With her woman's intuition, she easily guessed right. A huge bingo popped into her head. She smirked. Things are about to get interesting. My batting average is on point today. She quickly returned to her spot, grabbed Aben's wrist, and said, let's go, Miss Aben. She asked in surprise, what's going on? Where are we going? But the other girl wouldn't explain clearly, just saying, come on, let's go. A clearly teasing look appeared in her eyes. Gripping her hand tightly, she led her to the Tiger class. The class name was displayed on a sign. Rachel pulled Aben straight into the classroom and shouted, hello, Tiger class mind. If I borrow your classroom for a second. This stunned everyone. Surprised eyes stared right at the 2 of them, and the people standing around started whispering, whoa, that's Rachel II, no 4th-ranked student. Someone remembered her name. From behind her, Aben could only groan in embarrassment. "Rachel, are you really doing this?" But Rachel just strode confidently forward and said, "Oh, this spot will do?" Suddenly, she stepped right onto a desk support, climbing onto the highest desk. With a proud look on her face, Rachel yelled out, "I'm looking for the boy with black hair." Rachel's voice boomed. "Hey, where are you?" Down below, a boy with black hair. No, a guy with blue hair and blue eyebrows looked up clearly uncomfortable and said, "Hey, you. No matter who you are, stepping on someone else's desk is going way too far." Seeing this, Rachel confidently replied, "'Cause I'm cute." She snapped her fingers, mesmerizing the guy, who exclaimed, so beautiful." Beside her, Aben could only cover her face, while everyone else just laughed and said how cute she was. Suddenly she spotted him and whispered to herself, "Found him." Her expression became comical. A red-haired girl named Chloe was sitting next to Yoma, who was slumped over his desk. A thought flashed through Rachel's mind. Is that his girlfriend? She fixed her hair and thought, "Doesn't matter. Fine, this works too." Rachel boldly and quickly stepped across the desks, stretching her clothes as she moved forward. At that moment, Chloe was still laughing, her eyes crinkled shut. Suddenly, something moved past her, making her jump. Her smile slowly faded as Rachel leaned her face in close to Chloe. Seeing her act like that, Chloe was stunned, frozen like a statue, and at a loss for words. Everyone else was also shocked by this action. Rachel pushed her chest forward forcefully. She posed flirtatiously and let out a little ooh la la. Hearing the noise, Yoma woke up. His eyes were drowsy and he had no idea what was happening. She arched her back, striking a pose right on the desk. Her eyes lit up as she said, "Oh my gosh, you're finally awake." Rachel pointed at him and said, "Your name is Yoma, right?" By now, he had sat up straight, looking completely confused. She continued to explain, "I saw you at the practice room yesterday, but I didn't recognize you." He thought, "This is Rachel, but why is she here?" She pointed her finger right at his nose and said, "You know you're pretty handsome, especially." Suddenly, a random thought flashed through his mind. It felt like danger was approaching. "My gut is telling me this is really dangerous." A voice suddenly rang out. "Hey, you! Can I ask who you are?" At that moment, Chloe grabbed Rachel's wrist tightly. Her eyes showed clear anger as she said, "You." Chloe tilted her head, feigning confusion with a hint of irritation. She asked, "Who are you?" Her blazing red eyes began to narrow. Rachel's eyes, still burning with a fiery passion, remained fixed on her. She gave a perplexing smile. From a distance, Yoma saw the two of them glaring at each other, at the other girl, and he thought to himself, "Chloe, is this the danger I was sensing?" His thoughts kept echoing. It's that mode. Her personality has changed again. He could only watch as Chloe slowly tilted her head to the left, her pupils shrinking to tiny dots as they looked upward. She suddenly pulled out a knife. She looked terrifying in that moment. He thought, a knife. If there's a stabbing incident at school. Seeing the danger, he frowned and thought, I didn't think something like this would happen in the game. What in the world is going on? Witnessing this, Aben rushed over and pushed Rachel aside, saying, Rachel, what are you doing in another class? But Rachel just replied gently, What's the matter, Miss Aben? I just came to say hello. Just a little greeting. Is that not allowed? Then she pursed her lips in a look of pity, glancing over in a certain direction. Suddenly, Rachel stomped her foot down hard. She reached out her hand and patted Chloe's head. Hey, kiddo. When the grown-ups are talking, you're not supposed to interrupt. Got it. And little kids shouldn't be playing with dangerous things like this. Understand? Hearing that, Chloe fell terrifyingly silent. Her gaze grew even colder, showing extreme resentment. As Rachel turned away, she said casually, All right then, time to let the adults talk. But just behind her, Chloe was pulling the knife all the way back. A streak of light flashed from its blade. Standing beside him, Yoma and Aben saw this too. The two of them stared wide-eyed as something approached quickly from behind Jackal. She suddenly glanced back as a splash of bright red liquid shot out from somewhere. We thought it was some kind of attack, but it was just a spilled drink. The two friends were yelling, Hey, you spilled it. Open it carefully next time, the other replied. But if you don't act like that, you're just being heartless. The two were still talking when the other one snapped, Shut up. Rachel gently supported Chloe's arm. She let out a little cry, and Rachel spoke with a sarcastic tone. Too slow. I thought you were just an ordinary brat, but it turns out you're a petty little wretch. Huh. Her hand reached out and grabbed her arm, making those hands full of anger tremble uncontrollably. Annoyed groans kept coming from her. Over here, Aben furrowed her brow and screamed, "Stop it, Rachel!" But she didn't seem to care much. Aben looked completely dejected. But then suddenly she violently shoved Chloe backward. Chloe herself was quite startled by the push. It was so strong she could have fallen straight to the floor. But you never know what to expect. Before she hit the floor, she flipped over and landed lightly on her feet. Everyone standing nearby cheered excitedly while you just watched with that same look. An emotionless one. This is insane. A line of text appeared, Spear Saint Family. A notification panel popped up explaining that this family is known for its supreme power and its motto. When facing overwhelming power, no skills are necessary. The granddaughter of the Spear, Saint Rachel Zamura, she carries special missions. After throwing the person, she simply stretched her arms as if preparing for action. Then she turned back and asked Yoma in a soft voice, "Is that little girl your girlfriend?" He answered decisively, "No." But he thought to himself, "So cold. Don't look anymore." And yet it was true. The image of Chloe's angry face wouldn't fade from his mind. Then he spoke up, "Hey." Rachel replied, He kept wondering, what the hell is going on? He saw Aben's scowling face. That thought kept surfacing. Looking closely, Aben was here too. "I was so lost in thought I didn't notice." Yoma spoke first. "Did you two come looking for me for something?" Rachel replied, "Lady Aben has taken an interest in you, so I came to see what you look like." Hearing her reveal her secret, Aben frantically waved her hands in denial. When did I ever do that?" Her mouth denied it, but her face was strangely flushed red. Rachel asked back, "If that's not it, then why did you come here?" Aben replied passively, "Rachel, you forced me to come here." She said, "I thought Lady Aben wanted to come. That's why you followed so obediently." Aben hesitated. "Well, about that." Whispers rose from the people around. Aben shouted, "What are you looking at? What's going on? Whoa, are they fighting?" She explained, "No, I think you've misunderstood. I never said I wanted to come here." But in his head, he guessed correctly. "So you thought that, but still came along." He placed a hand on his head, thinking, then said, "If there's nothing else, you two should leave." Seeing his cold demeanor, the two were stunned. Then Rachel sat right down next to Yoma, linked her arm with his, and said, "You're pretty interesting. I like funny men." He furrowed his brows, gritted his teeth, and replied, "Lucky for you, I'm not the least bit amusing." Using her soft, captivating tone, she said, "Now don't be like that. How about it? Wanna watch some Netflix after school?" At that moment, from afar, Chloe erupted in fury and screamed at the top of her lungs. She glared with terrifying eyes, shouting, "Get away from Yoma this instant!" This made Rachel turn back in surprise and ask, "Yoma?" She burst out laughing. "Pfft, you call him friend, Yoma." He only got half a word out before she laughed again. Yoma also thought to himself, "That actually is pretty funny." Her booming voice could still be heard. "Lady Aben, did you hear that, friend?" A roaring call for Rachel came from behind. It seemed Aben was now truly enraged. Rachel could only glance back and say a single word, "Huh." This forced her to turn around. "Goodbye, Yoma," she said. "How embarrassing. It was nice meeting you." "Bye-bye, Yoma friend. We'll meet again soon." He angrily said, "Don't come back." Rachel pouted and said, "Oof, so heartless." She quickly took Aben's hand and they left. She turned back to say goodbye. "See ya." He was still thinking, "All right, just hurry up and leave." Then he quickly slumped onto his desk thinking, "I'm so sleepy I could die." Seeing him like that, Chloe quickly turned to look about to call out, "Yoma!" When suddenly Aben changed direction, turning back to look at him, her gaze glancing behind her. There was a hint of regret. She imagined herself in a truly romantic scene where it was just her looking at him with deep affection. Then Aben glanced forward again. But in the end, she still had to turn away decisively. Looking out the window, she also saw the figure of Rachel standing there. A thought echoed, "I didn't think it would go that far." Rachel and Aben were heading back to class together. Rachel continued to think, although his attitude was very cold, there's something profound deep in those dark eyes of his. She felt something vague. Yama's image appeared in her mind again. "It feels like my throat's being slit," she thought. She stroked her chin, a smug look on her face. How terrifying. Rachel thought he was completely different from the chattering classmates she'd met since starting school. All those emotional faces flashed through her mind. I only meant to tease him a little, she decided. Who would have thought I'd make such an unexpected discovery? For generations, my Saint Mark family has arranged marriages with exceptional warriors. This means... She licked her lips. Her eyes lit up. He's exactly the kind of talent my family covets. Rachel glanced over at Aben walking next to her and thought, as expected, the untouchable queen is quite interested in him. Suddenly she spun around and said, Lady Aben, I'm sorry. Aben placed a hand on her head, looking helpless. You're the one who should be apologizing to our classmates. You were the one causing all that commotion. Her voice rang out. No, it's not about that. Seeing her denial, Aben lowered her hand and asked, What is it then? Rachel crossed her arms and declared bluntly, Yoma, I won't give him up. This left Aben stunned as an image of spinning legs flashed in her mind. It's still active. The sounds of die. Die. The word echoed in Nox's mind. He was still seething with anger veins bulging on his face. His black mask was just a cover for his malicious expression. This body has lived its entire life without knowing defeat. The body of the genius auditor, he thought. I wonder if the night will be any different. He stormed forward thinking, should I ambush that bastard at night? Yoma's image flashed in his mind again. He broke into a cold sweat and scowled, overcome with hatred just from the thought of him. He charged forward, shoving another patient aside and yelling, Get the hell out of my way! He walked quickly, one hand still gripping his IV stand. I have to mobilize the family of the genius auditor. Only then will I be able to chop that bastard's head off. I have to kill that bastard and get Chloe back. An image of Chloe appeared. He knew her potential was even greater than his own. He approached his hospital room. As he reached for the door, he thought, that's right. I have to do it now. With the power of my family and my ultimate knight skill. As he peeked through the crack in the door, he thought, I will definitely. But then he saw it. What he saw made him freeze completely. Someone was standing in the middle of the room munching on an apple. He saw Yama. Oh, it's you, Yama said first. Chloe flopped down onto a chair, one hand in her mouth, the other tightly gripping a box cutter. Watching from afar, Yama thought she looked so pissed off. But she's the one who pulled it out first. She was drowning in anger, her eyes gleaming as she stammered and whimpered, Don't like it that much. Huh? Just then a voice called out, Chloe. This startled her, and she looked up. Really? She asked. Taking her hand from her mouth, she asked, What is it? Yama, is something wrong? Standing in front of her, he thought, just put the knife down. He scratched his ear and asked, How's Nox? Chloe seemed to hesitate. She looked down for a moment, then looked back up. My brother is in the Academy's hospital. Hearing that, he asked, confused, hospitalized why? She replied, He wasn't injured during the fight in the subspace. To be honest, I'm not really sure myself. She continued, I only heard that he'd been admitted, even though he doesn't have any visible injuries. So, I'm sure he'll be fine. Chloe's voice lingered. You don't have to worry, Yama. He looked down, lost in thought. Even though I sliced him in two, he can't be so weak as to have a mental breakdown. Could that bastard be planning something else? Thinking this, he patted Chloe's head. Chloe, he asked, can you tell me Nox's room number? The first step in dealing with a yonder is a head pat, he thought to himself. This made her blush as she asked, Why? Returning to Nox and Yama's ill-fated meeting. You! He screamed. Yama just gave him a cold, sharp glance. Raising the apple, he asked, Mind if I have this? Hearing him ask that, Oh, he thought you're already eating it, you asshole. Yama continued, The auditors must have a lot of money, huh? A special private room and everything. This is unreal. Nox stood there frozen. Finally, he demanded, How the hell did you get in here? As soon as the words left his mouth, Yama turned toward a knife on the rack, his hand moving to grab it. Nox's eyes widened at the sight. Don't tell me. He came here to finish the job, he thought. A long, sharp knife rested in his palm, but it wasn't what Nox thought. He simply wanted the knife to peel the apple. This made Nox freeze once again. The apple was peeled perfectly, the skin coming off in one long, continuous strip. Even Nox had to admit it. How is he so damn good at that? He gently placed the smooth, peeled apple on the table next to a fruit basket. Then he walked quietly past Nox and said as if giving advice, If you get tired of the food here, eat some fruit. His strange behavior took Nox by surprise. He had a knife ready hidden in the sleeve of his hospital gown. He shot a sideways glance as hateful thoughts swirled in his mind. That bastard! How dare he pity this body? I'll kill you. Just as Yama stepped out of the room, he let out a small, "Ah." As you walked away, you said, "And if you're planning on getting revenge on me..." He peeked out, waiting to see what you'd say, only to hear you declare, "I will destroy Auditor." With your ice-cold eyes and emotionless face, you successfully intimidated Nox. He was both terrified and surprised, with no idea what to do. Suddenly, something flew forcefully and hit the wall. The apple now had cuts on it, and then it split open. Seeing this, he was stunned again and fell backward. Your footsteps continued steadily on the ground. You put your hands in your pockets and thought as you walked, no matter what the enemy's presence is like, matchstick. His heart must be completely broken by now. That's why my intimidation tactic worked. You recalled looking at Nox with those cold eyes and almost scaring yourself to death. You concluded that Auditor is the most unique group of assassins in this world. It's impossible to deal with all of their members in just 30 seconds. You slowly looked up at your thoughts, still racing. If it's 10 people in 30 seconds, I might be able to hold them off. In any case, that's the worst-case scenario. I have to limit the killing as much as possible. You looked up at the moon shining silently in the sky. You still thought, it feels like I'm standing before a terrifying storm. You recalled every moment that had happened around you, from the fight with Nox to the fiery clash between Jacob and Chloe Aben's face and finally Nox's surprised eyes. You wondered to yourself, have I become skilled enough yet? Then you blurted out, I wonder what's going to happen to me now. The moonlight continued to shine through the dark night. You knew you could stop worrying about him now. The problem is, you thought to yourself, the person I want to get involved with the least. An image of a lasso appeared. You said, I don't want to get involved with her at all. You continued to think, even in the game, her character approached the male lead first but attacked later than the female lead, Aben. Yoma slowly took out his phone and said, all right, I'll deal with that later. Now it's time to prepare for the midterm exam. You stared intently at the glowing phone screen, thinking, the reward is pretty big, so I have to make a serious plan. Murasame, I need a weapon that can last for more than 30 seconds. It turns out you were looking at a calendar. You recalled the details of the exam. Regardless of class, 5 people must cooperate to subjugate a monster. In a team competition, individual skills are important, but trust between teammates is even more crucial, although the team members are quite annoying. But if we cooperate well, you imagined a scene of everyone traveling together. On a bus with people of different levels, voices rang out, ah, how funny, everything is still the same. Your thoughts echoed, we can all ride the bus together. And the monster we have to defeat for the test is a dreamless class Masu Merman. You only saw an image of a fish with human-like arms and legs appear. In your mind, scenes of them rushing forward to attack kept appearing. You sighed. It was already annoying in the game. Having to fight it in real life, you concluded, I feel like I'm about to throw up. You thought, even though I've been catching fish my whole life. But if it were a mermaid, that would be great. An image of a dreamless class mermaid appeared writhing. You said, am I getting a nosebleed? Yoma continued walking. Come to think of it, the mermaid is a merman. You sat down on a bench by the road, bowing your head in thought. A key figure of the demon race, the merfolk. Compared to the powerful mermen, the Masu are just like guard dogs. Luckily, my only goal is to conquer the beast Mermeth. I don't have to deal with the mermen. You said, it's been over a month since I came here. The night really is peaceful. You looked up again and said, peaceful. The surface of the sea appeared wave after wave. A blue light flashed. It's been 700 years since humans and demons signed a ceasefire agreement in this world. There have been many conflicts, big and small. A typical example, a purple face appeared. That's Batman. Half a century ago, they said they would revive the sealed commander of the First Corps. The commander of the Sixth Corps crossed the ceasefire line himself. Long ribbons intertwined. A powerful fist tore through them. A scream rang out. Lord Raycan. A chaotic scene erupted. Rocks and dirt flew everywhere, terrifying everyone. The screaming continued. I will bring you back. The people below looked up and cried out in alarm. A person holding a knife appeared in the gap. Humanity. those known as the strongest of all heroes belonging to the 7-Star Heroes organization. When after a week of bloody fighting, blood poured from one person's leg. In exchange for their lives, 3 people were sacrificed. An eye appeared one side of his face covered in blood. Fortunately, after that, no one else wanted to cross that line. A person dressed all in white was seen. It is sitting in a bathroom, holding a phone and saying, "The strongest of humanity, huh?" Was that just a commander from the 6th Corps? That peace has continued to this day. Yoma spoke, "I wonder how much longer this peace will last." Sitting on the bench, looking at his phone, images of you and another giant kept appearing. You said, "Come to think of it, Joaquin was the one who sealed the commander of the 1st Corps. Isn't he human?" However, a war between demons and humans is coming, including the Demon Kings. His finger quickly swiped through the calendar on his phone to 2037, only 3 years away. He looked up worried, but it's useless to worry now. I have to stay sharp and focus on the midterm exam. The phone screen had already switched to some chats. This is going to be a pain. But first, I need to get my hands on trillions. He hesitated. I've lived too quietly for too long. I don't have any friends. But then again, he thought smugly. Come to think of it, I'm currently one of the most famous people at the Academy. If I take advantage of this, I wonder if I could make some money. Yoma went back to staring at his phone. All right. In any case, I can't live quietly for the next 3 years. I have to get into a good group and ace this midterm. Perfect. Instead of quiet and comfortable, he chose noisy but comfortable. All right then, he said, time to change my goal. In a flash, the next week arrived. Yoma sat in the classroom, but his expression was anything but happy. What a lie, he thought to himself. No one invited me to join them. He remembered using a knife to slash at Nox, cutting his body into pieces. A scream echoed. This is really serious, he thought. Resting his head on his hand, he looked helpless. I'm the type who doesn't know when to stop. Is everyone scared of me? Suddenly, he looked to his side. It turned out he was looking at Chloe. She was all alone over there too. Her too, huh, Yoma thought. Since that day, Chloe had also been ostracized. He walked up to her and called out, "Chloe!" Startled, she spun around. "Yoma," he asked, "has no one invited you to a group yet?" "That's right," Chloe replied. "Not yet." He admitted, "Are you okay with that?" "I didn't have any friends to begin with anyway," she answered cheerfully. I'm fine. But if you were the one asking..." Before she could finish, he spoke up first. "Then how about you and I form a group? We still need to find 3 more people." Without any hesitation, she immediately agreed. "Sounds good." Meanwhile, thoughts about her kept popping into his head. Chloe is definitely the person I need. The goal is to catch as many daydreamers as possible, but within 1 hour. If I can catch one every 30 seconds, that's about 1,000. Seeming pleased with the idea, Chloe kept exclaiming, "This is so much fun." Seeing her made him happy too. She looks so happy, doesn't she? Suddenly a loud voice calling out, "Yoma!" made him jump. The name was slowly approaching. It was none other than Jay-Cho. She was running towards him with a carefree attitude. "I came to hang out." He flinched at the sight of her. "Why are you here again?" he asked. She replied in a cute voice. I just came to play, that's all." Seeing Jay-Cho's arrival, Chloe's demeanor became terrifying. She's here, she whispered. Realizing this, Yoma bit his lip and fell silent. Seeing this wasn't going well, he quickly stood up and said, "You should leave for today. I don't have time for you." Jay-Cho pretended to be on the verge of tears, wiping away imaginary tears and whining, "Yoma." "You're so mean," he reminded her. "Could you please stop calling me Yoma like that?" She threw a tantrum. I don't wanna, not listening. She moved closer to Yoma's desk, pretended to fall, and said, "I'm not listening. Whoops, I fell." Rachel looked up and asked, "Oh, by the way, is your test prep going smoothly, Yoma?" She's not even listening to me, he thought. His voice was barely a whisper. "No." "Oh, that's great," she exclaimed. Rachel then invited him. "Well then, come and join my group." Yoma frowned. He heard someone say, "That's great." Jay-Cho smiled and said, "Well then, come over here." She reached out and lifted Yoma's chin. "Join my group." Yoma slapped Jay-Cho's hand away. "Why me? Even without me, there's a whole line of people who want to join your group." Jay-Cho leaned against the desk, looked at Yoma and said, "They're not interesting at all." For some reason, I have a feeling that if I'm in a group with you, something fun will happen. Yoma jerked his head towards Chloe behind him. I've already decided to team up with Chloe. Jae-cho seemed unconcerned. She held up 2 fingers. No problem, my group still has 2 empty seats. Yoma fell silent. At this rate, forget the prize money, even my own grade is at risk. They say hate the sin, not the sinner. He glanced over at Chloe behind him, only to see her give a slight nod. Yoma turned back to Rachel. All right then, I'll be in your care. Rachel quickly took out her phone and tapped a few times. She replied, Okay, no backing out now, you hear? Yoma looked at her. But, who's the group leader? Rachel shrugged. It's Leon. You know who he is, right? He's super famous. Hearing the answer, Yoma practically froze solid. Oh, for fuck's sake. After Rachel left, Yoma sat alone, his body trembling slightly. He gritted his teeth. Did I commit some heinous crime in a past life or something? For the past 35 years, I haven't done anything but carve things. He remembered Abel and Rachel. I was trying to avoid them. But somehow, I always end up getting involved with the heroines. I guess I just stand out too much, and I'm their type. Yoma pauses for a moment, but in the end, it still happened. Yoma felt like he could see a halo radiating from Leon. Leon Van Renhart is a different story. He's the main character of this game. Yoma thought nervously, I don't know how the future is going to unfold. Is this all going to fall on me? He could almost see himself being tied up by Rachel's vines. I can't even switch teams. That witch Rachel put my name on the team list and closed the registration before even asking me. It was as if a smiling Rachel was reaching out to grab the tiny Yoma, saying, I won't let you go anywhere. Yoma clenched his fists. Damn it. I've never wanted to slash a woman this badly before. Chloe suddenly walked forward, tilted her head, and asked Yoma, Yoma, did something bad happen? She smiled and said, a moment ago when that, no, ever since that blonde girl left. The expression on your face hasn't been good at all. Yoma was silent for a moment, then replied, I just feel pressured about having to be on a team with them. Chloe encouraged him, I bet no one in that class is as strong as you, Yoma, so be more confident. Yoma gave a forced smile. Thanks. Yoma let out a sigh and thought to himself, all right, Chloe is going to join with me. It would be irresponsible to leave her behind. On second thought, aren't they all high-tier members? That's good too. I need to think positively. Yoma turned his head back to Chloe. What time is our group meeting? Chloe replied, that blonde girl said we'll meet at the cafe at 6 o'clock. Hearing this strange nickname, Yoma was a bit speechless. She's decided to just call Rachel the blonde girl, huh? Yoma asked Chloe. So should we start heading over now? Chloe nodded. Okay. Inside the cafe, a glass was placed on the table with a clink. Chloe held an avocado smoothie and let out a refreshing sigh. This is delicious. Yoma silently lifted his coffee cup. He glanced at Chloe. That green thing costs 5,000 The price is a bit... Yoma was shocked by the bitterness. He stammered, It's just Starbucks level. Yoma gritted his teeth and swallowed the horribly bitter coffee. I have to protect my adult pride. He looked down at the coffee cup on the table. The only drink that cost 1,001 was espresso. So I ordered it, but it's unbelievably bitter. Since it's an off-campus cafe, I can't use my student card. Yoma's phone, sitting on the table, suddenly vibrated. He picked it up to check. It was a message from Rachel. She wrote, I don't see you anywhere, Yoma. Yoma replied, You're already 5 minutes late. Aren't you going to hurry up? Rachel quickly replied, Sorry, I'm waiting for the others. Yoma simply texted back the location to her, Starbucks in the meeting room. Rachel messaged back very quickly, Here we are. Okay. The meeting room door opened and Rachel walked in with 2 other people. Yoma and the little one, sorry I'm late. Rachel asked, Have you been here long? Before he could answer, Leon's and Yoma's eyes met. Yoma noticed the orange-haired person who came in last speed weapon looking around. Yoma thought, That's slacker. Leon walked up to Yoma and extended his hand. Hello. Yoma replied, Hey. Leon smiled and said, Your subspace match was very impressive. It's great to have you on the squad, Yoma. Yoma observed Leon. His elegance shows even in the way he speaks. This is the main character I was talking about. Lifting his coffee cup off the tray, Leon spoke first. We should probably introduce ourselves first, huh? Rachel loudly agreed. Leon placed his hands on the table and said seriously, Let me introduce myself first. I'm Leon Van Renhart, and I'll be the leader of this team. A member of Class Z0. Even though I'm the team leader, I still have many shortcomings, so I hope for your support. Yoma stared at Leon. Just look at that face. Life is so unfair. Rachel giggled and spoke up. Everyone already knows me, so I don't need an introduction. She nudged the person next to her, signaling for Speed Weapon to go next. Speed Weapon then spoke. Member of Class Long. Speed Weapon. I like heroes the most. He liked them so much that he had the word hero tattooed huge on his neck. Yoma was a little speechless. That's it. You're not even going to explain your name. Is he the quiet type? My prejudice against him shattered when he said he likes heroes. Yoma felt like he was the type of person who thought being quiet made him seem cool. Chloe spoke up seriously. Hello everyone, I'm Chloe Auditor, a member of Class Long. I'm Yoma's friend. Rachel laughed, interrupting and teasing her. Yoma's friend. Chloe immediately got angry. She took a deep breath and held it in. I was recommended for this group. I'll be in your care. The three of them, Leon smiled. Rachel nodded. Oh, sounds good. Speed Weapon also nodded. A standard introduction. Then Yoma said coldly, I'm in the same class as Chloe Class Long. My name is Yoma. Leon turned and started looking for something in his bag. Well then. Yoma felt a bit awkward. He thought, this is so awkward. Leon took out his laptop and did a few things on it. Let's begin. The laptop immediately projected a three-dimensional image. What appeared was a map of Scorpuli Island. Leon's voice was steady. This afternoon, the instructor distributed guidance materials to the team leaders. This is the map of Scorpuli Island. This time, our test will be held here. He explained the rules to them. First, on the day of the test, we'll be transported to this island via subspace. However, only the gate itself is a subspace.